your vote.
Welcome. It is Super Tuesday here in California and 13 other states, as well as one territory in the nation. The biggest single day primary contest in the nation right now. California, part of it for the very first time, a major stake in selecting our next president. Welcome to the 10 News coverage right here from Golden Hall. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. As Kim mentioned, welcome to Golden Hall. The polls just closed here in California. We're going to start getting results in here. In just about 20 to 30 minutes, some really good results that we should know what's happening here in California. As Kim mentioned, presidential candidates have been crisscrossing the United States because 14 states are up for grabs, the biggest of which is California with 415 delegates up for grabs.
We have teams all over the county this evening. We have coverages of all of the major races, as well as the ballot measures and the very important mayor's race here in San Diego. We're going to begin with 10 News reporter Anthony Purra. He is at the Registrar of Voters office, and with 1.8 million registered voters here in the county of San Diego, it's a big day. Anthony.
A very big day indeed. We are here inside the Registrar of Voters office. It's sort of the calm before the storm, as you can say, here inside the warehouse. You can see the workers have started coming in here, taking their spots along the scanning machines. Still waiting for those first ballots to come in, but I want to talk about these machines. They are high-speed counting machines, and they are new this year. They're expected to be 20 times more efficient than the ones used in the last election. I want to show you some video from earlier here. Voters coming in to cast their ballots. There were no lines today. Things went pretty smoothly. The longest wait estimated around 5 minutes. People reporting a very pleasant voting experience. There were also new voting machines used for this election. People said that they liked the machines and had no problems with it. Now, again, we are back out here live. Again, this is the warehouse where they will be counting up the ballots. We're expecting the first ballots to come in here very shortly, in about 30 minutes or so. We will keep you updated throughout the night. We'll check in with you later for more updates as the night progresses. We're reporting live tonight. Anthony Purra, 10 News.
All right, Anthony, thank you for that. Real quick update. Results still coming in, but the Associated Press has already called California for Bernie Sanders. Again, we're going to have results coming in here just a few minutes to show you as well, but the Associated Press is already calling California for Bernie Sanders. Okay, in 2018, we had a huge rush on the Registrar of Voters office, so the county decided to create 4 satellite centers throughout the county to help with that type of rush. One of those is in Chula Vista, and that's where our 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo is live with much more. Laura, how's it look down there? Okay, all right. So we understand we do not have Laura Acevedo right now, but that's a big
Stephen Goggin on set with us.
Oh, yeah.
With getting that news about Bernie Sanders, let's talk about that, because there was an early sweep in all those southern states. Biden getting the black vote that he had so needed and really gave him a push early in the evening. Huge surge for him in those southern states for Bernie Sanders to get California. That was much needed. That's a game changer.
Right, it's a very big deal. It'll also be interesting to see, right, as the votes come in, exactly what the distribution is, because the Democrats allocate the delegates proportionally. It's not just winner take all like the Republicans do when they have contested primaries. So it's really great news for Bernie, of course, but exactly how far ahead he is and how many people are kind of at what threshold really is the big deal for California in terms of how it might kind of push back against Biden's pretty clearly early lead.
And we shouldn't be surprised with that, because Bernie Sanders was polling ahead of Joe Biden, who actually has been surging here in the last couple of days.
Absolutely. With
what happened in South Carolina. But Bernie has been polling very, very well here in California for the last week or two.
Right, he's been the pretty clear leader, right? There's been a number of changes, obviously, for the rest of the pack behind him, and there's some there's some changes in terms of like where the votes went as Klobuchar and Buttigieg dropped. But it's not that surprising he's in the lead, right? Just how far in the lead will be the real surprise of the night.
Absolutely.
Hang on, Stephen. We have Laura Acevedo. She's one of our 4 satellite centers just created. Some changes in this election. We have same-day registration this time. We have these satellite centers. They opened 3 days ago. People were able to start voting. It's one of the reasons we're not seeing the crowds at the ROV today. What's it look like at those satellite centers? You're in Chula Vista, Laura?
Well, Kimberly, the polls did close at 8, but all night we just saw a steady number of people. There was not those long lines that you just mentioned. Behind me, there are still a number of people inside because they showed up before 8 o'clock and are able to cast their vote. The wait time was never longer than about 5 minutes here. And again, that was the goal. People could either drop off a ballot, register to vote, or change their party affiliation if they wanted to. Volunteers were here to help people get checked in, and after filling out some paperwork, voters were moved into the polling booth to cast their vote. Now, the other locations were spread out throughout the county in Spring Valley, Carmel Mountain Ranch, and San Marcos. The goal of these locations was again to reduce the wait time for voters and solve any problems for voters without having to go all the way to the Registrar of Voters. And that is exactly what happened here essentially in Chula Vista. Now, we talked to several voters, one who stopped at the satellite center because she wasn't going to make it home to her polling station.
I was just looking at the time. I was on a time crunch. I wasn't going to make it to home, so I just, started searching for my nearest place where I could drop off my ballot.
There is VO, right? And just moments before the polls closed, we saw a 96-year-old woman show up with her niece to cast her vote. The volunteers bringing out a mobile polling booth to help her vote from her car. The woman originally from Chicago, voting for the first time here in California. Now, again, the polls are closed, but there are some people that are inside right now. Those people all showed up before 8 o'clock and are able to cast their vote for whoever they would like tonight. Reporting live in Chula Vista, Laura Acevedo, 10 News.
All right, Laura, thank you for that update. Let's bring back in Stephen Goggin, political science professor at San Diego State. I'm hoping that this is just efficiency, not low voter turnout tonight.
Absolutely, right. So the county's made a bunch of different efforts, to make it easier, right? There are of the 1.8 million or so registered voters, 1.3 of them got a ballot in the mail. And so many of these voters could have, I think they reported maybe like 300,000 had been submitted by mail already as of yesterday. A lot of voters might be dropping it off in person today. Obviously not everyone will vote, but the county's really tried with these vote centers and everything else to make it as efficient as possible. And it looks like that's paid off. There's a news of a few small issues here and there, but that's what happens with elections when you have that many ballots and that much process going on.
Stephen, before so many of the numbers come in here in California, let's get you to talk about, as people watch the numbers, what it means. We have the 15% threshold. We have 53 congressional districts here in California. The way we structure it is each congressional district and those delegates that go along, but there is that threshold in order for those convention delegates. So explain that as we look at even Bloomberg here in California later this evening.
Absolutely. So that's a really great question because while every state does it slightly differently in the Democratic Party, right, California has this cutoff where a candidate has to reach 15% in a congressional district. There are a few other statewide pledged delegates too that kind of drawn from across the state in order to get any delegates at all. And raw votes don't actually matter in terms of selecting a nominee. It's all these delegates that get sent to the convention. And so depending on, with the departure of Klobuchar and Buttigieg from the race and their endorsement of Biden and everything else, whether this pushes Warren or Bloomberg or these other candidates above 15% would really eat into the amount of delegates that Bernie Sanders would get if they reach that viability threshold. Not to mention, of course, Biden being somewhere kind of in between. And so depending on how many make it above that threshold, it could really cut some of how many delegates Bernie Sanders would take away from this. It would obviously give them some delegates, even if they aren't necessarily kind of in the lead nationally.
Knowing that and knowing the way that Bernie Sanders was polling here in California, is that why Biden stayed in Texas last night to make that announcement with Klobuchar and Buttigieg?
It's possible, right? Texas is much closer, right? It's still kind of on the edge of being called. But, out here, it was clear Biden would get some delegates. He was polling above that threshold pretty clearly. Yeah. And so I think it's not that he didn't want to be here necessarily, but you're just putting your energies elsewhere.
Exactly.
Given you expect the boost, right, from these endorsements from the other candidates.
When you talk about those endorsements, how the Democrats have coalesced of late behind Biden, and a lot of even some of the high-profile senators in the last 2 days saying, he's made a push now will endorse him.
Right.
Talk about that apparatus that coalesced and seems to be working.
Right, so it's a really interesting story. There's a pretty long, actually, kind of, I don't want to bore you with a big academic debate, right, about how much party insiders, how much power they have within the party. And after 2016, there was a big push and a big debate about how maybe they have very little. In fact, voters have this kind of outsized power with both Trump and kind of Bernie's insurgent campaign in 2016. But it's pretty clearly kind of this past 72 hours really changed the table dramatically in terms of, kind of the party insiders and everything else. Insider kind of the negative connotation, but just these connections that these members of Congress and others have built over decades allows them to make calls and call in favors and figure out the stuff behind the scenes to come kind of around a candidate like Joe Biden.
Could mean so much more as they go down the road, and depending on who wins the nomination. Hang on right there. We want to get in on some of the local races. One of the biggest races that we have here in San Diego, of course, is that for mayor. Our John Horn is with Scott Sherman right now at his camp. He's the one Republican who is running for this race for mayor and possibly moving on to November. John, how's it look there?
Well, it's starting to pick up, Steve. I mean, the music just started within the last 5 minutes, and now you see there's a whole flurry of activity here in this ballroom over at the U.S. Grant. So you are correct. Scott Sherman is in the building. We did speak to him about an hour ago before the polls closed, and he again reiterated why he wanted to run for office. He came in at the last minute. He said even though that the registration of Democrats to Republicans is 2-1 and independents outnumber Republicans 40%, by 40%, well, we have what he had to say about running and why he wants to tackle housing and homelessness. This is what he had to say earlier.
Homelessness side, we need to make sure that we enforce our laws, and it's not a crime to be homeless, but crimes you commit while being homeless, they're still crimes. And on the housing side, instead of mandating and raising fees, we need to incentivize and cut the bureaucracy and the red tape and just make it easier for housing to be built.
Against fellow City Council member Barbara Bree and State Assemblyman Todd Gloria, our polling shows that Gloria is in the lead to make that November runoff, and that Bree and Sherman are close, although Sherman has been ahead, although about 5 percentage points still within that margin of error. But people expecting him to make it to that November runoff, and that's when we'll see what really happens. Now, that is not the only high-profile race here that we are watching at Republican headquarters. The other one involves the county supervisor's race. Kristen Gaspar, a Republican trying to hold on to her seat. She is facing a challenge from 2 Democrats. That is Escondido City Council member Olga Diaz and Tara Lawson-Remmer, an economist and environmentalist. Spoke to Kristen Gaspar just a few minutes after I spoke to Scott Sherman. This is what she had to say about partisanship and why she hopes to keep her seat.
Never seen things as polarized as they are today. 3 terms in office, and we just all have to admit it's very divisive, the environment that we're operating in. But I'm not counting anybody out, because this is a nonpartisan seat, and the issues that we're working on should be nonpartisan. I have not been one to drag partisan politics in.
And of course, we cannot mention the local Republican races without the 50th Congressional District. We are waiting to see who voters pick to move on to that November runoff to replace Congressman Duncan Hunter, who resigned in January after that 1 felony count to campaign fraud that he pleaded guilty to. That is between former Congressman Darrell Issa and former San Diego City Councilman Carl DeMaio. We are waiting to see who goes ahead. In our most recent poll, Issa had pulled ahead by DeMaio by 6 percentage points, which was just outside that margin of error. And we all expect from our polling that Democrat Ammar Campa-Najjar will take that other spot in that race for that East County 50th District. So those are the 3 big races we are watching here from the Grant, this stage behind me. We expect Scott Sherman to take it around 9:20, give an update, give a speech on whatever the numbers show, and see what he has to say about whether he's going to move on to that November runoff. So that pretty much sums it up from here at the U.S. Grant Hotel, so I'll send it back to you.
The night is young. So many numbers to come in. We'll be back with you very shortly, John. We are starting to see our statewide numbers for president, and it's interesting, these very early numbers in the evening, just because what we see here, the X factor in all of this is Michael Bloomberg, $63 million in his ad blitz in the state of California. What would that do for him very early on? It's interesting to see him, because this will be the only time you'll probably see it, to be neck and neck with Bernie Sanders here in the state of California. And behind them at 15% is Vice President Joe Biden. So interesting just to see how that's shaping up for Bloomberg so early on.
And very different numbers for him than what we've seen in some of these eastern states that the results have come out of earlier. Prop 13 is the statewide initiative, $15 billion state bond to build and repair schools throughout the state of California. The entire state, again, voted on this. This was backed by teachers, administrators, even some healthcare advocates, but right now it is losing 55 to 45%.
We have reporters throughout the county here in San Diego with all of the candidates, with all of the races, one of those being Adam Rakusin. You're at the Weston and in the Gaslamp area as well. Adam, what's it like there?
Yeah, this is the party location, Kim, for many of the Democratic candidates tonight, and it was a little slow when we were talking to you earlier this evening, but take a look behind me, and people are starting to funnel into this location here at the Weston. The Democrats are focusing on a couple big races tonight. Of course, what happens with the presidential race, but all the way down to the county and city races, the party is expecting a very big night. You'll see the signs that are set up all across this room, focusing on what they are looking at. The mayor of San Diego is another big one that they're honing in on. You have two Democrats trying to get into the general election for the spot for the mayor, Barbara Bree and Todd Gloria. We were following both of them this morning as the candidates casted their ballots. Bree had her grandchildren with them, and Gloria had his parents with them. Both said they'd be spending the day working the phones and campaigning. Got to make every vote count, get whatever you can. Hopefully we'll have some of those election results coming in soon, but you know, the latest 10 News Union Tribune poll showed Gloria with a big lead on the rest of the candidates. Another race that we've been following and that they are following here tonight is going to be the race for the 53rd Congressional District and who will replace Susan Davis in Congress. And that's a pretty large field that's going for that seat. Davis has held that seat for about 2 decades. The district is heavily Democratic, with Democrats outnumbering Republicans nearly 2-to-1 in voter registration. So those are some of the big ones that they're focusing on. Of course, you've got the city council candidates, more than half of the council up right now for election and new candidates coming in. So you see a lot of those and people coming in here. I spoke to a representative for Todd Gloria's campaign. He will be talking here later on this evening after some of those results come in. So you can expect sometime around 10:15 that we might hear from Todd and what he has to say about the results that are coming in. Also, we're going to have more candidates starting to pile in here. We'll bring them to you. We'll interview them, what you want to know from them. Ask them the questions as those results come in, guys. Send it back to you.
All right, Adam, thank you so much. One of the other biggest races that we have going on here in San Diego County is that for the 50th District to replace Congressman Duncan Hunter. Ammar Campa-Najjar is the lone Democrat that's running in that race. Our Jen Kastner is following his story tonight. Jen.
Yeah, that's right. We are live tonight in El Cajon with Ammar Campa-Najjar, who just arrived here along with all of his supporters.
That's right. I'm feeling great. Are you guys fired up? Yeah! They call us happy Campas for a reason. We're happy warriors. We know we're going to be doing well in the primary, not because, you know, we earned it. Everyone here has been working every single moment until the polls closed. They've given me their labor, their love, their days, their nights, everything. And we're finally going to take this seat back and give it back to an East County son. We're not going to let some politician pick their voters. The voters are going to pick their politician in the 50th.
Yeah. All right, tell us about what the rest of the night looks like.
So we're going to go to Golden Hall after this and do the round and talk to everybody else. We're going to probably give some of them a little bit of a break, and then we're back at it tomorrow. We're going to be watching the returns as they come in and just continue to take advantage of the fact that the 50th is being focused on right now as the most hotly contested race in San Diego, and let people know that we're here. We want to include everybody. Whoever loses their race, we're welcoming them, whoever it is. We're going to have a broad coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. We're going to need a bigger office, but we're going to welcome Republicans. If you're Republicans, you're welcome. If you're a Trump voter, that's fine. You can vote for Trump and you can vote for me. That is fine. We've been talking about that for years. So you're welcome in this campaign, no matter what it is you believe in. If you believe that the 50th belongs in the hands of someone who's from this district, if you care about the cost of living being too high, if you care about holding power accountable, if you care about rewarding work and not just wealth in this country, if you care about holding Washington accountable, I'm your candidate, and I hope to have your support. We have so many supporters. The water's warm. Come along for the ride.
Mr. Campa-Najjar, thank you for your time. We'll catch up with you later on tonight. We are live in El Cajon. Jennifer Kastner, 10 News.
Right, he is very optimistic, but there's someone he's got to get through the general election with, and it's one of two people, but certainly we have the longtime congressman initially from the 49th, Darrell Issa, choosing in the last election not to run, now running in that 50th seat. He will be one to watch, along with Carl DeMaio. And we'll see who gets past this primary and will face Ammar Campa-Najjar. And with Darrell Issa right now, we have Jeff Lasky. Jeff, what's it like there?
Yeah, Kimberly, here at the U.S. Grant Hotel, where it's starting to fill in. In fact, one of the other congressional candidates just came on here, but I did get to catch up with Congressman Issa, former Congressman Issa here, just within the last 20 minutes or so, right as the polls were closing. And I asked him about that race against Carl DeMaio, because it has perhaps been the most negative race out of all of the races we've been covering in the county. I asked about that, and in particular, the role of President Trump in that campaign between Darrell Issa and Carl DeMaio, because both candidates are trying to claim him as a supporter in their race.
Well, it's important to understand I didn't have to Photoshop any of the pictures. Carl Photoshopped every one, and that's a shame, because that kind of deception is inappropriate. I was a delegate in Cleveland for the president. I've met with the president. My pictures are real. My videos are real. My being on Air Force One and in the Oval Office are real. And my friendship with the president and support for him is real.
Now, Issa feels prepared for this race to drag out for a while, depending on how long it takes to count all of those votes. But he says that he feels pretty good, pointing out that his previous district actually covered a good chunk of what the 50th district covers now. So we expect to hear from Congressman Issa come up again later here in our coverage on 10 News. Live from the U.S. Grant downtown, Jeff Lasky, 10 News.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Yes, we do want to hear more from Congressman Issa about this. Let's bring back in Stephen Goggin one more time. I thought this race was getting ugly.
Right.
It's getting uglier.
Absolutely, right. I think both can kind of pretty clearly see that the decision tonight, right, is the November path against Campa-Najjar, right? Campa-Najjar will put up a strong campaign, I'm sure, but it's a pretty Republican-heavy district, and that they view each other as the obstacle they need to get through in order to get this seat, and are doing kind of whatever it takes, really.
And what we would assume would happen, obviously, as you've just said, is Campa-Najjar in the general is going to have a much tougher time. Although he's in the mid-30s now, the other two are splitting the Republican vote.
Tell you what, let's hold that thought.
Yes, when we get back, we're going to ask you about how they coalesce in the general. But we'll be right back after this.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job.
Back in the job.
Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Tamron every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter. The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
the lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. I have the same exact amount.
Hot Bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
All right, it is 8:25. The polls closed here in California about 25 minutes ago. And as you've probably seen from ABC News, the Associated Press is already calling California for Bernie Sanders in that Democratic presidential nomination or race so far here. Good evening from Golden Hall. I'm Steve Atkinson.
And I'm Kimberly Hunt. Look behind us. It is starting to fill up here at Election Central in downtown San Diego. The polls closed just in the last 30 minutes, and so numbers will be coming in soon. One of the most contentious races is clearly in the 50th congressional race in San Diego. It's been one of the most bitterly fought leading up to this primary.
It is a Republican-held seat for the last 40 years, but Ammar Campa-Najjar is trying to make a run on that as a Democrat. Our Jennifer Kastner is there with him right now with an update. Jen.
Well, Ammar Campa-Najjar just arrived about 10 minutes ago. We are at his office in El Cajon. He is here for the watch party. You can see all of his signs around the office, and then there's going to be a lot of supporters in this back room that we are about to show you. Everyone watching the numbers come in live tonight. Look at all of these supporters here. Very busy day he had of last-minute campaigning. You can hear all of that support. As you mentioned, he's the only active Democratic candidate and polling very strongly. Most recent polls from a week ago show him coming in with 35% of the votes for this district, the 50th Congressional District. Who his Republican opponent for November is still unknown. We'll have a better idea later tonight. He will be here for the watch party and then heading to Golden Hall. We are live in El Cajon. Jennifer Kastner, 10 News.
Thank you, Jennifer. One of the people that he may have to get past in the general election, if former Congressman Darrell Issa makes it into that seat, he will be in that general with Campa-Najjar. That would be a race to watch. And we have Jeff Lasky down at the U.S. Grant Hotel right now with Darrell Issa. Jeff?
Yeah, and Kimberly, there was just a cheer here about 30 seconds ago because the first numbers actually came out showing Darrell Issa in second behind Ammar Campa-Najjar and with about a 3-point lead on Carl DeMaio. Again, very early, about 19% of the precincts reporting. Now, this has been perhaps the nastiest campaign out of all the ones we've been tracking the county. A few moments ago, I got to ask Darrell Issa about his feelings about the campaign going so negative.
Well, you know, there's an old expression, I didn't give anyone hell, I just told the truth and they thought it felt like hell. Look, I've been a conservative for 20 years in public life. My opponent was a moderate who suddenly became a conservative and never explained how. And I think we made a good case that if he's not going to tell us how he went from being liberal to being a conservative, then nobody should believe he's going to be a conservative.
And we expect to hear more from Congressman Issa, former Congressman Issa, as the results come in. Live at the U.S. Grant downtown, Jeff Lasky, 10 News.
All right, very quickly, let's get to Vanessa Van Hefty at Carl DeMaio's headquarters. Vanessa.
Steve, you can see here a full house with supporters here watching those early returns come in for the 50th Congressional District seat. We talked with DeMaio earlier. Of course, the former councilman says that in Congress he wants to make sure that the gas tax money goes to our roads. He says his second priority is cleaning up the streets. He will be here a little later to check in with him.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless. dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job.
Back in the job.
Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Ammar every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. You're watching ABC 10 News, live election coverage. Your voice, your vote.
And welcome back to ABC 10 News special election coverage of this Super Tuesday. We are live from Golden Hall. I'm Steve Atkinson.
And your voice, your vote. Those votes are beginning to come in. They are beginning to count here in California. For the first time ever, California playing a big role in who will be the nominee for president here on the Democratic side. So let's look at those new numbers, because there's a 4% difference now with Bernie Sanders getting out ahead. Now it's become 8%. So it growing rapidly, that Bernie Sanders is pulling away from Michael Bloomberg. They were 24-24 less than a half hour ago, and it shows what $63 million can do in Michael Bloomberg's case. Sanders already projected the winner here in California. He will have a big night. He needed it after Joe Biden's start in the South.
Let's bring in Stephen Goggin once again from San Diego State to talk a little bit about this. This is the big key here with California. This is the prize tonight with 415 delegates. It means a lot because earlier tonight, Joe Biden was doing very well in some of these smaller states, but not nearly as many delegates.
Absolutely, right. So this is a place where Bernie Sanders could make some of that ground back up, right, and recover. Previously, he had kind of the delegate lead, and it's pretty close, right? They're kind of neck and neck between this. And so if Bernie Sanders stays quite ahead, that'd be great for him. But it'll be interesting to see how the candidates behind them shake out. Given, right, the most recent polls, right, are a little bit outdated already, given the big changes and shakeups after South Carolina this weekend, it'll be really, really interesting as the night goes on to see exactly how the candidates fall, particularly around that 15% threshold.
Bernie Sanders is not holding back in front of his fan base. He has already been live in front of his crowds and already spoken about Klobuchar coming in at the last minute and giving Joe Biden much needed boost there, as well as Buttigieg doing the very same thing, and Beto did as well, but he dropped out so much earlier. Bernie Sanders is really not, at this point, telling his fan base, so if I don't get it, rally the other guy. Do you think there could be a case where Bernie Sanders fans feel that the Democratic apparatus has really stolen this from him again, and they may not come to the polls for a Joe Biden?
Sure, so that's definitely possible. We can look back to 2016, right, and a lot of that rhetoric was very similar then when Hillary Clinton was leading and kind of took the nomination at the convention. And so some of that rhetoric will always be there, I think partly because you motivate your base in these contests week after week after week by demonstrating that you want to be the only one that can take it there. But I think at the end of the day, right, many of his supporters would coalesce around whoever the Democratic nominee is. Maybe not all of them, right? It could be a significant in terms of outcome outcomes kind of stay away, but it's always kind of the talking point you as a candidate want to have, right, is that many of the other kind of unity appeals worked less well because then support might shift off or kind of shave off in other directions throughout the campaign.
Well, let's talk about the X factor in this. Michael Bloomberg, who's had a tough night throughout on the East Coast, but is doing well here in California. This is the first time he's been on the ballot. He really campaigned hard in California and in Texas, Illinois, and New York. He's doing well here tonight, so how does this make him feel with what he does here in California?
Right, so as you mentioned, right, it's the kind of the first time he's on the ballot, right, tonight. Part of this, I think, is a bit of a function due to many of the late changes, right, and so many people vote early in California that many people may have had their votes locked in already, whether voting by mail or in person across the state. And so given the changes with Biden kind of many candidates that are dropping out, coalescing around Biden, right, it might shake up the race a bit. And Bloomberg did quite a bit less well in Virginia tonight on the other side of the country, a place where basically very few people are voting early and kind of the decisions come in much later. And he also spent a decent amount of money there.
Oh, yeah.
But it does show you, right, if you dominate the airwaves with advertising, it can help you, right? And his messages were somewhat persuasive to many voters, particularly when many voters in the Democratic Party were looking for kind of a moderate candidate to rally around. And given the changes of the past 3 days, many Democrats now think that's Biden, not him. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, that brings us to Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. Still in the race, ideologically very similar to Bernie Sanders. Right now she's at 11% right here in California. But a lot of people are looking at Elizabeth Warren now.
Right.
Saying she should follow suit.
Yeah, so we'll see. I would bet, her campaign's looking closely kind of at the numbers tonight and everything else and at the viability thresholds in many other states. In a number of the states on the East Coast, she fell below the thresholds and won't actually get delegates out of them, which is not a good thing, right, for these contests, even if you're getting a sizable share of the vote. So we'll see. And the next primaries are not until next week. There's no pressure to kind of do it tonight necessarily, but I think there'll be a lot of discussions in the coming days, right, with Bloomberg already noting that they're going to kind of evaluate his campaign tomorrow as well. I imagine you'll see some similar things with Warren later in the week if things don't go more positively tonight, particularly in California if she doesn't meet that 15% threshold.
So much could shake out. Stephen, hang tight right here. We do want to check in with the local Bernie camp that is taking place, Bernie Sanders camp in Barrio Logan. Our Jennifer De La Cruz is there live with much more on what's happening there tonight. Jen, what's up?
Guys, the mood has been changing significantly over the past 10 to 15 minutes when those early California numbers started to come in, and it's projecting Bernie Sanders is doing pretty well, which means their work here has paid off. We'll take you inside. So a lot of people gathering here. These are volunteers that have been going door to door for months now. In the past 24 hours have been restless for this entire team. Volunteers met here early today before heading out for one last time this afternoon. A lot of them coming back at 7:59. They were working right until the polls closed. In total, they had about 100 volunteers here working to round up those last-minute votes. This campaign focusing on the ballot delivery law, allowing volunteers to pick up ballots that were already filled out, that were mail-in ballots, and drop them off at the polls themselves. And for organizers, that has been a huge factor in this campaign.
We definitely wanted to make sure that we get those folks that aren't used to voting by mail, register them, switch them to mail voters so that we can get them access to voting. Some folks aren't used to voting, so a lot of the folks that we targeted are not high propensity voters, and we wanted to make sure we made it as easy as possible for them to do that.
Organizers also say it's especially helpful for people who otherwise can't make it to the polls because of work or lack of transportation, and obviously all of their hard work has been paying off. So everyone in this room pretty much in a really great mood as they will continue to keep their eyes on this projector, watching as these early numbers continue to roll in. And back out here live, once again, volunteers were here knocking on doors until 7:59 out, especially in the Barrio Logan area, really trying to maximize their time getting in these last-minute votes, all coming back, watching closely for the rest of the night here in Barrio Logan at the Sanders Watch Party. So we will continue to be out here as well as more numbers in California continue to roll in. Everyone here hoping that it keeps on this track of Bernie Sanders looking like he will be the projected winner in California, and also some of the numbers that are coming in Texas as well. Overall, for people in this room, so far, so good. Guys.
His supporters very energized tonight. Thank you for that. Jennifer De La Cruz live in Barrio Logan. So the polls have been closed for quite a while now on the East Coast and the Midwest. Many more of those numbers have been coming in. How the nation is shaping up on this Super Tuesday with 14 states and 1 territory all going in for the biggest prize on this one day. We have Derek Stahl in the Live Center, and he's got those latest numbers for us. Derek?
Yeah, hi guys. Some surprises on this Super Tuesday. I'm joined by Dr. Kira Green, Executive Director of the Center on Policy Initiatives and an Assistant Professor at SDSU. So we're taking a look at the big board here. We got Biden in the darker blue. We got Bernie in the lighter blue. What is this map telling you about the demographics that are at play?
I think what it says to me is that this part of the South where we have a large number of black voters, we're seeing strong showings from Biden just as we expected. As we move to the West where we have more Latino voters, we're seeing that show up for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, so right now, Biden has picked up 8 states. Bernie's got 3. The current delegate count has Biden in the lead with 204 delegates, but we know Texas is still very much in play. California hasn't been called on this map yet, so Bernie's going to pick up some delegates there. 2 of the surprises, though, are Massachusetts and Minnesota. I want to zoom in on Massachusetts. This is Elizabeth Warren's home state.
I know this has got to be a huge disappointment for her. I mean, these are the voters who know her the best, and this is where you'd expect her to have the strongest showing. The fact that she's coming in 3rd here, I don't think it bodes well for her, and I think it also doesn't bode well for her ability to move voters to Bernie Sanders.
And we looked at some of the exit polling, and it showed that she wasn't doing that well with men. She has some stronger support with women than men. There's a bit of a gender divide, and you picked up on a gender divide as well among Biden supporters. What did you see there?
I was surprised by how Biden was actually doing pretty well among women. I think this is a reflection of the fact that Bernie Sanders has really struggled there, but women are coming out strong for Joe Biden, and it wasn't clear to me that that would be true.
So let's take a look at Texas, because there's a lot of delegates at play in Texas.
That's right.
Sanders is in the lead right now, 28%, but Biden is close behind at 25%. What about the makeup of Texas is really at play? A lot of Latino votes.
That's right. I think this changing demographic of Texas, this fact that we've got a surge in Latino voters, we've seen strong organizing also happening over the last few years to really get those Latino voters out and to the polls, and that's paying off for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and if I can quickly bring up the this is the exit polling for Texas, and you can see it a bit. Latino voters under 30 overwhelmingly support Sanders, 66%, but as you get a little bit older, Latino voters 45 to 59, they tend to go for Biden. The interesting thing here is Bloomberg. I guess we should talk about him. He spent more than $50 million in Texas and is barely showing up. You know, he's barely registering. He's in 3rd place, 17%.
I think this is sad for Bloomberg, but maybe pretty good for democracy. I mean, we have a question in this country about how does money play a role, and it's at least demonstrating you can't just outright buy an election just putting a lot of money into it.
Yeah, no kidding. And Biden only spent about $500,000 in Texas, and he's doing pretty well. Last thing I want to bring up is President Trump. He's taken a number of shots on Twitter, but the only candidate he seems to be targeting is Bloomberg, who's not won any state so far. So what do you make of President Trump attacking what he calls Mini Mike Bloomberg?
I mean, I think it's one, this president takes things very personally, and this is a person he knows, a person he's had a long career of interactions with, so he's insulted by that. And I also think I've been thinking about this is a pretty smart move. He's not really clear who his real opponent is going to be, and he's not giving anyone a boost by talking about them tonight.
So I want to put you on the spot. Do Mike Bloomberg and Elizabeth Warren have a path forward after tonight, given the map as we see it right now?
I don't see a path for either of them moving forward. I think what they may both do is stay in this race a little bit longer to think about how they can help support their preferred candidate as we go into the convention, but I don't think either of them is going to be the nominee.
Right, you're talking about a little bit of a power broker situation if there's a contested convention, which hasn't happened since the 1950s.
This map still points to the real possibility of a contested convention, and we don't know how they'll play out, but that's not surprising. All of our politics these days don't look like they have in the past.
All right, Dr. Kira Green, thank you so much for that analysis. We'll send it back to Kim and Steve in Golden Hall.
All right, thanks a lot, Derek. We appreciate the update there from our home site. All right, we are just now getting some new numbers in on the race for the 50th district. As you well know from some of our polls, Ammar Campa-Najjar had been leading this race, even as a Democrat. But as of tonight, look at what's going on. Darrell Issa, the former congressman for the 49th district, now pushing his way into the 50th, is leading Ammar Campa-Najjar. Again, these are very early numbers, only 1% of the precincts reporting right now. But he's got 34% of the vote to Ammar Campa-Najjar is 28. And this is kind of what we thought with some of these polls, because the top two will go on to November to run in a runoff. And it does look like at this point it might be Darrell Issa and Ammar Campa-Najjar.
As we see these numbers coming in, it's really been less than 45 minutes since our polls closed here in San Diego. Been working very well. The Registrar of Voters took many steps to allow people to start voting days ago, to have satellite centers. But at the Registrar of Voters office, we have Anthony Pura right now to tell us what's going on there. Anthony? Do you want me to do the numbers and then you start on the guy? Or?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, we understand that we are back. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there where we lost some power, but we're back up and running once again. Yeah, here we go.
Great. Well, we are just seeing the numbers for Measure C here in San Diego. Just to refresh your memory, of course, that money would go to the expansion of the convention center, homeless programs, and road repairs. And right now, very close to meeting its 2/3 threshold at 63%. And it's very early in the night. If Measure C tracks just 3% higher, that would be the 2/3 it needs outright. And for so long, people in the hotel industry and those at the convention center and the Chamber of Commerce have said, we need those hotel taxes to go up just a bit so we can expand the convention center, keep getting those conventions in, and it's the tourists that pay that tax. It's not the residents of San Diego. Need to watch those numbers very closely.
This measure has had huge bipartisan support throughout San Diego. Democrats, Republicans coming together. Also the Labor Council. Keith Maddox joins us here from the Labor Council to talk a little bit more about this. You're behind Yes on C as well. This is incredibly important because this adds a lot of jobs from what you're telling us.
Yeah, this is 7,000 full-time jobs over the next several years and thousands of construction jobs for the next decade or so. So this is a huge issue for workers in San Diego and for San Diego as a whole.
How long have you been working on this? There's been machinations of this on many elections now, going back to trying to to put this with the stadium with the Chargers. Didn't pass back then. This time they're trying it, and with kind of saying we're also going to help roads and the homeless. It seems like it couldn't stand alone.
Yes. And it's the coalition. You talked about that, the broad coalition of business, labor, the Taxpayers Association, homeless advocates, veterans advocates. So it's a broad coalition of citizens, and that's why you're seeing the first results tonight being really close. 2/3 is a really tough, it's tough to get there. That's why you don't see many of these pass on these tax measures. But that broad support, and because of what it does, there's really no good reasons not to do this when you're talking about adding up to $40 billion to the economy over the life of this measure. And it's all paid for by the tourists who come here to enjoy our beautiful city.
Keith, I don't want to downplay this, but still, you mentioned it is tough to get that 66%. 63 is very close, and it's trending that way. But if you don't get it, what does that say about San Diego? Because as Kim mentioned, we've had a number of these issues come up. We just can't seem to get things passed through.
It's hard. I mean, because, folks, even when you talk about the things that it can do for homeless, there's no other funding like what this measure can put, $2 billion over the life of this measure, and possibly more for funding, real dedicated funding to help a crisis that they don't have to pay for. But what you hear so often is you have to overcome that hurdle that people just don't believe it. It sounds too good to be true. And it's not. It's legit. And I think we'll get there. I feel real good about these first results. This is a good statement.
And the Tourism Authority, of course, looking at San Diego as being a destination for people all over the world, trying to grow it, trying to bring conventions in. They've already lost hundreds of millions of dollars with large conventions they can't bring in. Workers who would get the jobs, that would be able to expand the convention center. So there's kind of labor and tourism coming together in this bigger need for San Diego. What discussions have you had in along that line that says San Diego needs to kind of grow up as a city, do things as other tourist destinations have done?
Well, you hear that a lot, that this is a small town, but it's really a big city, right? And so it's, we do. I mean, this is a situation of where all the major cities that compete for the tourism dollars and compete especially for conventions, all of them are in the process. Either they've already expanded, they're in the process of expanding, they've already taken the step. So you fall behind. If we don't expand it, if we don't pass this and expand that convention center, you won't just be status quo. You will start losing, because what's happening is those conventions are getting bigger and bigger. And to be able to bring in more than one convention and to constantly be bringing them through, we got to expand.
Okay, real quick, I want to ask you a question about how this will change lives, because for lack of a better word, this was a kumbaya moment, because you guys promised that this would be local jobs for people. How will this change lives for people here in San Diego?
Well, these are good jobs. I mean, that's a lot of people just think tourism jobs are all bad jobs. That's not the case. If you talk to those workers who work in the convention center itself, I mean, we're talking about adding up to 1,000 jobs inside of that convention center. Those are high-wage jobs. They're skilled jobs. You know, they're engineering and audio and lighting engineering, camera crews. You're talking about, you know, management jobs. You're talking about hotel management, our catering. Those jobs in catering and banquet services, those people, they buy homes, send their kids to college. And so you're talking about really adding an economic boom to the city that we need.
Well, we'll continue to watch those numbers with you this evening. We know you want that next 3%, and so we'll all be watching for you. We appreciate
Fingers crossed.
Have to get it, yep. All right, Keith, thank you. Good luck to you.
We have Mimi Alcala. She is with Sarah Jacobs, who is trying to get into the 53rd district. She ran for the 49th last time, barely losing behind Mike Levin this time, going for Susan Davis's seat. And Mimi, we want to check in with you. What's her camp feel like tonight? What's going on there?
Well, people just started trickling in here within the last 10 minutes or so. Kimberly, everyone's going to be closely monitoring this screen right here, making sure that they see those numbers rise for Sarah Jacobs. A lot of the supporters who are coming here tonight to the party in Old Town actually volunteered with Sarah Jacobs' campaign and continued going door to door, making those last-minute phone calls until the polls closed, trying to get any new supporters. So a lot more people are supposed to be arriving here a little later, and so will Sarah Jacobs. And the race for the 53rd district has been pretty jam-packed, with more than a dozen candidates. Jacobs says she was not planning on running for Congress again after losing in the race for the 49th district, but then when Congresswoman Susan Davis, who has served for 20 years now, announced she was retiring, Jacobs did see this as an opportunity to try again, this time in her new district, the 53rd, which really covers a large portion of the county and has been a heavily blue district. Jacobs' biggest competitors tonight are Georgette Gomez, Democrat, and also Republican Chris Stoddard. And Jacobs' top priorities, her main talking points that we've heard from her, have been about cost of living, cost of childcare, climate change, homelessness, and gun violence. So again, this party here just kicking off within the last 10 minutes or so. More people expected to show up tonight, and so will Sarah Jacobs. And of course, we'll try to grab her and get an interview with her for you live. But for now, we're live in Old Town. Mimi Alcala, 10 News.
All right, Mimi, thank you so much. We want to check back in on the race for the 50th, the seat to replace Duncan Hunter, who is moving out of office. Vanessa Van Hefty is with Carl DeMaio's camp. Vanessa, we just got some numbers a little bit earlier showing Daryl Issa and Ammar Campa-Najjar. Actually, now this is shifting a little bit. It looks like Ammar Campa-Najjar is leading Daryl Issa 34% to 25%. And the man you're with, Carl DeMaio, has only 21%. So how are things going there tonight at his camp in Escondido?
You know, Carl's expected to walk in the door here at any moment, but the watch party, you can see here, it's a very tight quarters here, but they're watching those early returns, and we're hearing it's early in the game, and they're not giving up at this point, very early. He is expected to arrive here any moment and make some comments to everyone here. He was here all day making a last-minute push earlier on the phones. We caught him. Of course, a very contentious race here. The fight mainly centering on Darrell Issa and DeMaio, the two hitting each other very hard on who has been more loyal to Trump. But DeMaio, as Steve mentioned, lagging a little bit in those first returns, still very early, and we'll check back in with you guys coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Vanessa, for that. You can see the tension in the room.
Yeah.
Because this is for Carl DeMaio, his last stand, if he doesn't make it to the general, against Campa-Najjar. And this is not his first time at trying to win a local election. So he's going to look at that 4%. Right now he's trailing Darrell Issa, who's hanging in at about 25%. We'll be back with more numbers after this.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges: housing,
interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
cost of living,
Income is very significant for our family.
making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job.
Back in the job.
Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Ammar every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter. The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
It's been almost 1 hour since the polls have closed here in San Diego, and the numbers are coming in. Good evening, I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. We are live from Golden Hall. One of the biggest numbers coming in is that race for San Diego mayor. Let's get right to that. And it looks like Todd Gloria is pulling away. He's going to be there in November. The key is who's going to be there with him. Will it be Scott Sherman or Barbara Bree? They are neck and neck right now.
And then we want to look at the tourism tax increase. It needs a 2/3 majority, and right now it is close to that 66% threshold. It needs at 63%, and it would raise taxes on the tourists that come here to San Diego.
Measure B is one of those very contentious measures about housing. Right now, for the Newland Sierra Amendment, does not look like it is passing. 58% to 42% is what's happening. Very early numbers, though.
But this next one is too close to call so early on, and of course that is Measure A. Measure A, the SOS, Save Our San Diego Countryside Plan, requires a public vote for housing developments in unincorporated areas. We'll watch that one.
A lot of county board of supervisors seats are up, at least two big ones. It looks like Greg Cox, he is moving out of his office. Ben Hueso is currently leading that race with 31%. Again, so many more numbers coming in as we go along here tonight.
So we are going to be able to watch the city council races, our mayor's race, huge new developments, even at the board of supervisors, whether they will be, although they're nonpartisan, whether they will be Democratic or falling Republican or Democrat. So we will keep these numbers coming in. We'll keep letting you know. In 30 minutes, we'll be back with more.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job. Back on the job. Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Ammar every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
Earlier, we showed you numbers from the 50th Congressional District. Carl DeMaio is currently in third. He's speaking now. Let's listen in.
That debate, I think, is one that hasn't been held in California in, well, maybe 20 or 30 years. But it's one I think Californians need to hear. And I'm proud of the fact that this movement will be the movement that absolutely makes the case for freedom in the state of California and turns the tide back to reclaiming the golden state of opportunity. So I want all of you to know, from the bottom of my heart, how much I personally appreciate the effort that you've put in every day into this movement, not just with this campaign, but our pension reform initiative, the recall of the state senator who cast the deciding vote on the gas tax and the car tax, the gas tax repeal itself, and this campaign. That shows that individuals working together can accomplish so much, even without the institutional and establishment support of the big political parties, even against the odds. And so I want you to know that you, individually, our movement, collectively, we are powerful. They will push us down. We will rise back up. We will never relent until we advance the cause of freedom. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart. Tonight is a celebration, and I know that we brought this great, menu of potluck. Everyone knows we are fiscally responsible. We cooked our own barbecue for barbecue beer and ballots. We bought our beer at Costco. Even our election night party was a potluck, because that's what our movement's all about, is bringing people together and each doing whatever they can in their own way. And the collective result of that is a powerful movement. So we are going to count every ballot, and then we got to get ready for that general election campaign and the larger fight to take back the state of California. Thank you so much.
Yes. Former San Diego City Councilman Carl DeMaio being optimistic early on in the evening. There's still much time in this race, but he is third in that race. What's interesting is to look at the two numbers between Carl DeMaio and Darrell Issa. You add them up, right now it's 46%, meaning in the general, Ammar Campa-Najjar would have a much tougher time beating a Republican in that race.
And a Republican held seat for the last 40 years with the Hunters, so that's the thing he's got to overcome there.
Let's take a look now at the mayor's race here in San Diego. And what's interesting, Todd Gloria was polling at about 29%. Early on, it shows him up at 40%. Now, these two are too close to call, but Scott Sherman and Barbara Bree. Scott Sherman 2 percentage points ahead right now. If he continues and ekes out through this primary, it sets up for an interesting general election between the Democrat of Todd Gloria and the Republican in this race, Scott Sherman. So the general would look very different than this primary.
And much like you were just talking about, if Barbara Bree puts everything behind Todd Gloria, that could make a difference for the San Diego mayor as well. All right, Measure C is the hotel visitor tax increase that needs 2/3 vote to pass. Right now it's at 63%. Of course, this would expand the convention center, provide homeless services, also street repairs as well. But again, it needs 63%, 2/3 vote to pass to make it here.
And right now we are joined by Michael McConnell. Oh, but let's go to Measure B as well first, though. Right now, that is the Newland Sierra project that would allow for more housing, schools, and retail. It's a big project. It's north of Escondido, and there has been a lot of opposition on this, especially from the Golden Door, a very elite spa, put $1 million into this campaign to see the defeat of Measure B, and right now it is going down.
All right, Measure A is one that's very close. This is the SOS Save Our San Diego Countryside Plan, will require public vote for some housing developments in unincorporated parts of the county. And it looks like Measure A at this point is passing 51% to 49%. Again, very early numbers and really, really way too close to call.
Interesting to look at Measure G. That would put in, rather than having 16 very big estates built on the bluff above Dogs Beach in Del Mar, it's privately owned right now. Instead, you would see a 56-room hotel. You would see some affordable suites that people could rent, and some affordable housing on that bluff. It would be a little higher in density, but people in that area not wanting to see that go in. Right now, it doesn't look like it would make it if these numbers were to hold throughout the evening.
The city attorney, right now the incumbent is Mara Elliott. She looks very, very good in this race so far. She has 67% of the vote. I don't think there's much of a surprise in this race whatsoever.
County Board of Supervisors, very interesting to watch this, because in District 1, they're replacing Greg Cox. He's been there for 20 years, and we're looking at this for would it fall to the Democrats. And right now, with Ben Hueso leading at 31%, pretty handedly over the court commissioner, Rafa Castellanos, it looks like that at least that seat would go to the Dems.
And in District 2, they were replacing Diane Jacob, who has termed out. She held that seat for 28 years, and at this point, Joel Anderson, the former assemblyman, is leading Steve Voss 38 to 34%. So it looks like those two are going to be running on.
And there was some rumor to watch in here in District 3, Kristen Gaspar, very popular incumbent in the Board of Supervisors, but she did get some pretty good Democratic contestants here, but right now she's doing very well at 48%. Looks like she'll ease right back into that seat.
All right, we did mention Measure C just a moment ago. We talked with the yes side a little bit earlier. Now we want to bring in Michael McConnell, who is for the No on C campaign, to talk a little bit more about this. Again, we talked about the bipartisan support. There is a huge amount of people on the other side of this. You're actually a homeless advocate, so the first question that people would have is, why are you against this?
Well, originally it was because it was this massive tax and bond measure to do a convention center expansion that was really using exploiting the homelessness crisis to get people to say yes. The convention center is not a popular tax. They've tried this over and over and over. So they threw on homelessness to tug on your heartstrings, and it might be very successful. It's too early to tell, but it's a very close race so early on.
I want to kind of drill down into what you're saying, though, for kind of homeless was tacked on so that it might get passed. But if people like Father Joe Carroll, who have spent decades in this town trying to help the homeless, are back Prop C, Measure C, he backs it. He thinks that it will bring programs to help the homeless, mental health programs to help people that have the mental issues to actually get the programs that would help them. So even if it was brought along, why not?
Well, the problem is it might do those things. It's actually not guaranteed to even build one unit of housing or services for homeless veterans, seniors, or even families. The measure itself, the initiative language, is so riddled with loopholes and deeply flawed that money can be easily siphoned off. They don't even have a current cost estimate to do this convention center expansion, which is going to cost billions of dollars when you add in the interest to the bonds. So is there going to be enough money? Who knows? But this measure is very problematic, and that's why I'm watching some of these city council races very closely, because it's really going to be up to our next council. If this thing passes, we're going to have to really hold them accountable to make sure that this fulfills the promises, because the measure itself is written so loosely it doesn't have to.
So you're not believing the numbers. I just want to clarify that. There's a certain percentage set aside at 31% for the homeless. The tax dollars come in from the tourists that come in, and 31% goes off to the homeless. The convention center can't touch the 31% after they get their percentage. You don't believe those numbers?
Well, I believe the initiative language that says the city council can actually change that. It also, if you look at the language, homeless people and homeless programs is written so vaguely, so broadly, that money can go to something that actually doesn't even get somebody off of the street. It really is a classic bait and switch tax measure. That's why it's going to be really important to hold our city council and city leaders accountable. One of the reasons that I did my opposition was certainly to try to defeat it, but it was also to shine a light on these loopholes so that we know going into this what we have against us in order to actually get this implemented correctly. And it really is going to be a challenge.
Your concern is, you say taxpayers could be on the hook for as much as $2 billion over, what, 30 years?
That's correct. The payments on $2 billion worth of bonds, which is actually a lot more than $2 billion.
Again, if they don't go by the wording of the measure.
Well, or if the hotel tax doesn't bring in enough money. The measure specifically states that other funds can be used other than the hotel tax to pay the bonds. It says right in the initiative. So that's what puts San Diego taxpayers at risk. It's just one more loophole that is problematic. And that's what and that's really what I tried to get through to the voting public, is what these loopholes are, so they were really informed going in.
You spent a lot of your own money on this.
I did, but it was a small fraction to what these large corporate hotels piled into this. The millions of dollars that the special interest put into this dwarfed the amount of money I did. But I felt obligated as an advocate for the homeless to stand up to something that was really what I felt exploiting homeless people, to do this tax.
When you say special interest, so we know the Chamber of Commerce, we know the mayor, we know the Tourism Authority are all backers of this. Special interests in general, or whom are you speaking of?
Well, Private Prison Corporation, Geo Group put money into this. A lot of the big money came from large corporate hotels that stand to make millions of dollars if the convention center expands and they can fill up more rooms or even build more hotels. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about special interest, is these folks that stand to make potentially millions of dollars off of this tax that ultimately San Diego taxpayers are responsible for. Thing to keep in mind is
if they do make that money, then they're going to make the money that's going to be able to be funneled to homeless, which you're saying they might not make, so the homeless wouldn't get it. So we do want them to get those people in the rooms.
Yeah.
People in the rooms, hotels filled, that's what's going to make the money.
The tax will go back to pay the bonds, and then hopefully an increment of that tax will also go toward homelessness, and at some point maybe roads too. So there's a lot that we just don't know. We have to hold our city leaders accountable to fulfill the promises that they've made in this measure if it does pass. That's going to be really important, and you'll see me speaking about this a lot more if it passes. I'm going to stay on them.
All righty.
That's what we all should do, is hold our city leaders accountable.
And 66% not easy. So we still do have a lot to watch tonight.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Michael McConnell.
Thank you for having me.
For joining us. We appreciate that. We have Matt Boone at the Registrar of Voters office, and it's been a little more quiet down there in the last hour since the polls closed. What's happening there, Matt?
Kimberly, actually pretty quiet all day. Right now, we've actually been hearing about some voter issues across California, mainly in Los Angeles County, people having long lines because of issues at the polls. That was not the case here, at least at the Registrar of Voters and at the 4 satellite centers that they opened across the county. I've been out here all afternoon. I was out here earlier gathering video, and what I saw, at least when I was out here, that rarely was there a time when there were more than 5, maybe 10 people in line at any given moment. So people were kind of flying through here. There was a worry that lines could be long like they were 2 years ago, because people can now register the same day at any polling place. This year, though, they got out ahead of that and opened those 4 satellite centers in addition to this site that have been open since Saturday. So people have had a lot of time to come in to do early voting. I spoke to one woman, though, who waited. She came by this evening to re-register. She knew it was last minute, but says it all worked out well.
You know, kind of thinking to myself, well, I'm sort of glad that I procrastinated now with like the candidates changing last minute, and, you know, me actually changing my vote last minute because of that.
Easy for voters who came out. What we don't know, though, is if the short lines is indicative of low voter turnout. I spoke to the Registrar of Voters earlier this evening. He says they don't know yet what those turnout numbers are, though from the numbers that they do have, they expect it to be about 50 to 55% of total registered voters once they certify the election 30 days from now, and that would be in line with the 2016 presidential primary, where the overall voter turnout in San Diego County came out to be right around 51%. So we're looking at that as well. But overall, pretty easy day of voting here in San Diego County as far as I've heard. I haven't heard any major complaints. I was looking through Twitter, saw maybe one person complaining about a long line, but that was about it, at least from what we've seen so far. Reporting live tonight in Kearny Mesa, Matt Boone, 10 News.
Hey, we like efficiency here in San Diego. We'll take that, Matt. We will take that, no doubt. All right, let's hope it's a little busier inside where they're counting the votes. Let's go inside the Registrar of Voters office. That's where our Anthony Purr is, where they are actually counting the votes right now. Anthony.
Well, workers here inside the warehouse have been ready to go since 8 o'clock when those polls closed. You can take a look here, but we are still waiting for the first votes to come in from the precincts. We still haven't gotten the first batch in. The numbers that you've been reading off, those were the early voting numbers, but the precincts, they haven't sent their ballots in yet. That's why you see a lot of the workers here. They're hanging by their machines. They're ready to go. They were getting a few tutorials from some of the county workers and staff just a short while ago, because these are new machines that they'll be using here tonight. These were not the same machines that are being used to count the ballots that were used in the previous elections back in 2018. These are actually much faster. These are called high-speed ballot counting machines. The ones that you're looking at here, they can read ballots up to 4,000 ballots an hour. They have some in the back that can go 10,000 ballots an hour. The previous elections, they were going at a rate about 500, just to give you an idea. So expect it to be about 20 times more efficient tonight. But of course, none of that can get going until we get the first batch of ballots in from some of those precincts that have just closed up. So we're waiting for those ballots to come in. I know these workers are ready to go. We're actually told that in past years, a lot of the stations here, they like to do a little friendly competition with each other to see who can count up the most ballots for the night. So they're ready to go, and we'll catch up with you guys again a little bit later once the first ballots come in. Reporting live tonight, Anthony Pura, 10 News.
Nothing wrong with a little friendly competition.
Yeah,
Thank you, Anthony, for that. Well, back in 2018, the County Board of Supervisors amended the general plan. In doing so, they affected the Sierra Newland project north of Escondido. In that amendment, they put in a project to be over 2,000 homes. A lot of people who live in the area, as well as the Golden Door Spa, said this should be decided by the voters. They collected the signatures to put it on the ballot because people such as our next guest, Cliff Williams, don't want to see this project go in. So right now, Measure B is failing, 58% to 42%. Cliff, we're bringing you on right now. How do you feel tonight?
We're very hopeful that this project will be defeated by the voters. I think that the voters have recognized that this is a project that is not the type of development that San Diego needs. This project has no affordable housing, but has massive traffic impacts. It's not smart growth, which is what we're looking for in San Diego. This is old 1980s sprawl. This is a developer that got cheap land and is trying to sprawl out and really put all of those impacts from traffic and the destruction of habitat and things onto the taxpayer. And the people of San Diego are really understanding that and are taking this back. They did. They signed 117,000 people signed petitions to put this on the ballot. And that in and of itself, regardless of whatever happens tonight, is a signal to the County Board of Supervisors that San Diegans know good development and they know bad development. And they know that this is bad development. So we're very hopeful tonight that that's what we're seeing is that this project will be defeated. But whatever Newland decides to come back with, even after this maybe, we're going to be ready. And the community is organized and they're ready to meet this and to really stand against anything that doesn't have smart growth principles in it, isn't connected to transit, doesn't have affordable housing, and something that's going to destroy habitat and put houses in harm's way in a very high fire area. It's just not the kind of development we need in San Diego.
You talk about housing. We'll get to that in a minute. But let me talk to you about traffic because you brought that point up. The Yes on B campaign says they've got $55 million that they want to put in for infrastructure for those traffic issues. How do you answer that?
So what they would be required to do would be to widen a road, Deer Springs Road. But they actually put 28,000 average daily trips onto the I-15 freeway every single day, and they pay $0 to expand that freeway. And the reason that they say that they can't do that is because they say that Caltrans doesn't have a project up that way that they can pay into. Well, the reason that Caltrans doesn't have a project is because there was no growth planned up there. And that's why planning's important in San Diego, and that's actually why smart growth is important. The county general plan really focused growth and housing back into the urbanized areas. So the taxpayers could get the benefit of all of that money that we've spent in the Transnet tax on the 78 freeway, on the I-15 freeway south of the 78. And they decided that that was kind of, the limits of where they were going to go. So they actually pay nothing. And it's $153 million in impacts on the I-15 freeway, and they pay nothing for it. So they're transferring that to you and I as the taxpayer to, have to deal with that problem.
He asked you about the traffic in the area. You've said twice there's no affordable housing. You only have a few seconds. They say there's 60% affordable housing for people making less than median.
Yeah, that's just,
agree?
It's absolutely not true. It's actually not true. Okay. In this project, which is what was approved by the there is no affordable housing in this project. Regardless of what they're telling people, it's just not true.
All right, Cliff Williams, thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
And we'll continue to watch Measure B, and we will come back with more results in 30 minutes.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job. Back on the job. Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Ammar every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
Yeah, the ballots are being counted, and our Super Tuesday coverage continues. Good evening. I'm Steve Atkinson.
And I'm Kimberly Hunt. We are here at Election Central, downtown San Diego. Welcome to all of the coverage we have throughout the county. Our reporters are covering every race and every measure tonight.
All right, let's check in with our Anthony Pura. He is inside the Registrar of Voters office where they are counting right now. The polls closed at 8 o'clock tonight, and they are busy, Anthony.
Yeah, very busy. In fact, the first batch of votes just came in a short while ago. They came in through a conveyor belt back there, and then now they're going to get sorted out and eventually funnel their way here into one of the counting stations. You can see all the workers here. They've been ready to go since about 8 o'clock after those polls closed. Again, the first batch of votes came in from one of the precincts, one of the 1,548 precincts. The first batch came in. They're going to be going through these new machines here. These are new machines. These are high-speed counting machines. They can go up. The ones that you're looking at here can count 4,000 ballots an hour. They even have some in the back that can count 10,000. It's going to increase their efficiency by about 20 times compared to the counting machine equipment they had from 2018 during that election. Again, these workers here, they're ready to go tonight. The first batch came in. We're going to start seeing some action here very shortly, and you're going to start seeing these machines go to work for the first time. We're going to check back with you as soon as we can, and once we get more information going. We're reporting live tonight, Anthony Pura, 10 News.
The Registrar of Voters has to be very happy tonight. It has gone just as planned. Part of that reason is that they opened 4 satellite centers. So if you're up in San Marcos, you're in Chula Vista, you're in these remote areas that were a little bit harder and they would crowd the central area, that they have these satellite centers they could go into. Laura Acevedo is in Chula Vista right now. Laura?
Kimberly, and that was the goal, to make voting for people a lot faster and a lot easier without having to go to the Registrar of Voters. We are in Chula Vista, and the lines were never longer than 5 minutes here. People could either drop off their ballot, register to vote, or even change their party affiliation. The process was quick, first filling out some documents and then moving to the polling booth to cast their vote. Now, the other locations were spread out throughout the county, one in Spring Valley, Carmel Mountain Ranch, and San Marcos. The goal of these locations was to reduce wait times for voters and to solve any problems like a lost ballot, a change of address, or party affiliation without having to travel to Kearny Mesa. Now, we spoke to several people who said this location definitely made things easier.
I have to wait like 5 minutes because there was a little problem with the address, but then it took me like 2 minutes to vote. Very quick.
And just before the polls closed, we did see a 96-year-old woman that showed up to vote for her first time here in California, originally from Chicago. She said this location made things easier for her. She was able to vote from her car, volunteers bringing out a mobile polling booth to her car. Reporting live in Chula Vista, Laura Acevedo, 10 News.
All right, Laura, thank you. One of the most important races we have here in San Diego is that for mayor. The top two move on to November. Todd Gloria has been polling very well early on. Looks like he is moving on to November. The question is, who's going to follow with him? Republican Scott Sherman or Barbara Bree, the Democrat? They are neck and neck right now.
Also, the hotly contested race. This seat has not been open in 40 years. District 50 right now, Campa-Najjar looks like if the numbers hold, he would be facing Darrell Issa in the general election, but still too close to call between Issa and DeMaio.
What a very interesting race that's going to be moving on into November as well. Okay, we're going to continue our coverage on all of your favorite streaming devices with our local ABC coverage. In the meantime, we're going to send you back to ABC national coverage with George Stephanopoulos. You can follow us on those streaming devices. We'll be back in 30 minutes with another update from here at Golden Hall.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. Takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job. Back on the job. Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Tamron every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10.
Welcome back to Election Central. We have numbers coming in from California. It's early in the night, but let's take a look at some of the hottest races in California, beginning with the 49th congressional seat. Of course, a lot of people there wondering whether Mike Levin could be at all vulnerable throughout this evening. And it does look like that in that race, Brian Maryott, who is the former mayor in San Juan Capistrano, now a councilman, may actually have a bit of a chance because it's 50-50 right now in the 49th. And so that is one to watch. A bit surprising because Mike Levin, the incumbent now, really in the fight for his life early on.
All right, let's look at President statewide for the Democratic Party now. Earlier tonight, the Associated Press had already called California for Bernie Sanders, and it looks like he continues to pull away in this race. This has been very interesting because California has moved up into Super Tuesday, so very important to all of these individuals, and with 415 delegates up for grabs. Joe Biden had been doing very well earlier tonight in the eastern states, much smaller states with much less delegates, and Bernie Sanders is looking very, very well tonight with 29% of the vote.
And now we're going to take a look at the 50th right here. There's been so much back and forth between Darrell Issa and Carl DeMaio, the two Republicans that were hoping they could beat each other so that they could face Ammar Campa-Najjar in the general. And pretty steady throughout the night, Darrell Issa has been with 2 to 4 percentage points ahead of Carl DeMaio, which means he would be in that general. And then it really is game on for Ammar Campa-Najjar to try to beat the Republican in the 50th.
And in the 51st, Juan Vargas is the incumbent here. These two have battled before in the past, and this is kind of history repeating itself with Juan Vargas again leading here with 65% of votes. This is going to tell us a lot about what's going to happen in November.
And in the 52nd district right now, we have Scott Peters, the incumbent, quite a ways ahead right now. People were wondering if by chance he could be able to have it be a little closer with his Republican challenger. It's a businessman, Jim DeBello, but it does look like Jim DeBello will be the one that goes into the general with Scott Peters.
All right, this is one of the most interesting races that we have here in San Diego County. This is the seat to replace Susan Davis. She held that seat for 20 years. Sarah Jacobs put a lot of money into this race, does not have the support that Georgette Gomez does of the Democratic Party, but she currently leads 30% to Georgette Gomez's 18%. I think that there were a lot of thought that Sarah Jacobs will really want to take on Chris Stoddard, the Republican, in this race moving on into November. But it looks like this is going to be two Democrats in November battling it out for this 53rd congressional seat.
Proposition 13, and no, that has nothing to do with the property tax in the 70s. This would allow the state to sell $15 billion in new bonds to help build and repair new schools, and right now it doesn't look like there's any appetite for it. If these numbers hold, it is not passing. 58% to 42% right now. Prop 13 going down.
All right, we showed you the numbers a little bit earlier in the 49th race between Mike Levin and Brian Maryott. Levin, of course, is the incumbent in this race. Maryott is the Republican in this race. Some thought that he might have a tough time, but that's not the case so far. This is absolutely tied. Again, still very early in this. Let's go down to the floor here at Golden Hall. Lindsay Pena is with Brian Maryott right now. Lindsay.
Yeah, that's right, Steve and Kim. I'm here with Brian Maryott and all of his supporters.
Good evening, and as well to your viewers, yeah.
So we see these results. You're encouraged right now.
Very much. I mean, we knew coming into the day that it would be all about a strong top two finish, and this is really strong, and we expect to continue. We have felt for some time now that Mike doesn't line up with the district, that Mike Levin is just too hard left. He's an activist by trade, actually, and he is pushing things that are hard left. I think the communities from Del Mar to Dana Point understand that we don't need to turn things upside down in this country and hand health care to the government in order to take care of the vulnerable. We can do it all without crushing private insurance. And we expected these results tonight. It's nice to see them coming together. We got great volunteers, and everybody's been working so hard.
Talk to us a little bit about how you got to this point. It seems like you've definitely got the support, but what is your philosophy on getting this seat?
Well, it's a seat that's been represented by more thoughtful leadership for many years, and I think 2 years ago there wasn't really a good discussion about the issues. The race in the general election was very personal. It was full of personal attacks. They had one debate. I'm hoping Mike Levin will debate us 3 or 4 times. I think he owes that to the district. This community did not get a good discussion about the issues 2 years ago. And we're out there with the issues that people care about. Working families trying to save and get some money tucked away to get their kids off to college without being overwhelmed by debt. A healthcare system that offers promise and innovation for all at prices they can afford without hurting our vulnerable. And we can do that. We're a very gracious, very generous country, and we can have the best of both worlds, and some thoughtfulness around immigration and a safe and secure border. I mean, there's simple things. There's not that much that ails our country, but I want to go to D.C. and be a quiet leader and work on those things. I don't want to do what Mike has been doing, which is being hyper-partisan and being a political celebrity, at least attempting to be. That's not leadership.
All right, Brian Maryott, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. That is it from down here on the floor. Kim and Steve, back to you.
Yeah, very interesting, Lindsay, because what he did right there was lay out really what he took to the voters leading up to this primary. What he is billing Mike Levin as being is a progressive. And he's saying that you're in Orange County and Upper San Diego County, where you played the moderate until you got into office, and you're not a moderate, you're a progressive. It seems like that has resonated, at least with some of the more traditionally conservative voters in that 49th
Very close
district.
race.
Very interesting. Thank you, Lindsay, for that. Rachel Bianco is up in Del Mar, where the Marisol development is on for Measure G on the ballot in Del Mar, that bluff that overlooks Dogs Beach there in Del Mar. So many people go to see the sunset. Will it be a hotel, or will it be about 16 very nice large estates? Rachel is joining us now to talk about Marisol's development in Measure G.
Hi, Kimberly. Yeah, it has been a controversial project. Right now, we are in Del Mar. We're outside En Fuego Cantina, where a group of the people who were against the Measure G, they were against the Marisol development. And in just the last 10 minutes, they've been watching the returns, and they've been doing a lot of cheering. Take a listen. Now, so far, the early returns are showing that Measure G is failing. The no votes are ahead by about 100. Now, supporters and opponents spent much of the day campaigning up until the last minute. If Measure G were to pass, there would be a zoning change to the 16.5-acre oceanfront lot that sits on the bluffs right above Dog Beach, right on the border of Solana Beach. Now, Zephyr Partners wants to build a luxury resort called Marisol. It would include, among other things, a 65-room hotel, 22 affordable housing units, a restaurant, and public trails. Supporters argued that it will be the first time in about 100 years that this site is actually open to the public. But opponents said all along that is misleading. They say there already is some public access. They also say it's just too big, allowing for up to 46-foot tall buildings, nearly double the maximum height allowed in Del Mar. Take a listen.
The density, again, setting that precedent that you or I as an individual owning a residential property could upzone at any point in time with our neighbors and decide that we want to get the best bang for our buck.
I challenge anybody to go to hotels that are actually larger than what we're proposing. La Berge Del Mar is larger than what we're proposing. The Lodge at Torrey Pines is larger than what we're proposing. Go to any of those intersections or any of those driveways of those hotels and tell me if you perceive a traffic problem. It doesn't exist.
And the developer says the project would bring in about $6 million in revenue for Del Mar. Critics say that number is not realistic. And again, the early returns show that Measure G is failing. Reporting live in Del Mar, Rachel Bianco, 10 News.
56% to 44% right now. All right, Rachel, thank you for that update. All right, we have talked about some of the presidential numbers for the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is leading here among those candidates. Let's go into Jen De La Cruz, who's in Barrio Logan right now with Bernie Sanders' San Diego headquarters. Jen, what's the atmosphere like there?
So overall, Steve, everyone here is in a pretty good mood. They have moved in from watching some of the results coming in and are now just gathering outside, having a bonfire of sorts and just starting to celebrate, really thanking each other for all of the hard work that they've done, which is clearly paying off in these neighborhoods. And you have to remember, a lot of these people have been working together, canvassing our San Diego streets since 2016. And the past 24 hours for them have been pretty restless. The volunteers were meeting here earlier this afternoon before heading out door to door one last time. In total, they've had about 100 volunteers working to round up some of those last votes. This campaign focusing on non-traditional voters, especially young people and people of color. And we spoke with some of those volunteers who are thrilled with the results so far.
We definitely wanted to make sure that we get those folks that aren't used to voting by mail, register them, switch them to mail voters so that we can get them access to voting. Some folks aren't used to voting, so a lot of the folks that we targeted are not high propensity voters, and we wanted to make sure we made it as easy as possible for them to do that.
So they tell me they plan on keeping this momentum going long after tonight. Everyone here still waiting for more of those numbers to come in, but so far looking pretty good for all of these Sanders supporters here who were hoping to see results like this, and the results really speaking for themselves. All of these people who have been going door to door, canvassing these areas, starting very early this morning, and they were out knocking and talking to people until the polls closed at 8 o'clock tonight. Of course, still early here, and we are waiting for more numbers to come in, but we will continue to stay out here all night with them as we continue to watch this race in California. Reporting live in Barrio Logan, Jennifer Dela Cruz, 10 News.
Thank you, Jennifer. We're also watching who will replace Susan Davis, a longtime congresswoman here in San Diego County. Many people trying to get that spot, among them Sarah Jacobs, and we have Mimi Alcala in her camp tonight. Mimi, what's the tone there?
Kimberly, Sarah Jacobs just walked into her watch party right now here in Old Town. She is currently addressing her supporters right now. I'll go ahead and show you that. She said she'll come over and talk to us once that's all over. But everyone here is closely watching the screen behind us, monitoring the race for the 53rd Congressional District. And so far, things are looking really great for Jacobs. We spoke with some of the people here about why they actually chose to support her.
Yes, I have so much respect for Susan Davis, and I think that's one of the main reasons that we need Sarah is because she's got some federal experience and she can really hit the ground running once she gets to Washington.
She's young. We have a lot of the same values. I think that my generation holds for the most part, you know, like gun violence and Medicare.
And of course, Susan Davis has held this seat for 20 years now, as you just heard Kimberly mention. So Sarah just thanked her right now in her remarks to her supporters here. A little bit about Sarah. She worked with the Obama administration and at UNICEF. She founded an international education nonprofit, and everyone here is just really excited to support her. So as soon as she's done speaking with her supporters, we're going to catch up with her and we'll bring you that. But for now, we're live in Old Town. Mimi Alcala, 10 News.
Thank you, Mimi. We want to take a look at the numbers in that 53rd district, too, because what's interesting, it was always known, according to polling, that Sarah Jacobs would end up getting past the primary and would end up in the general. The thing of it was, would she then have a Republican, which was Chris Stoddard, or would she have the city council president, Georgette Gomez, backed in this primary by the Democratic Party? So if you take her on mano a mano going into the general, and you have the Democratic Party backing Georgette Gomez, that's going to be a much tougher fight. And so far in this evening, Chris Stoddard has never gotten above Georgette Gomez. So if the numbers were to hold, it would look like Sarah Jacobs would face Georgette Gomez. That will be quite interesting going into November.
Two Democrats fighting for that seat that's been held by a Democrat for the last 20 years as well. All right, we want to bring in Matt Adams, who is here with the No on Prop A campaign. He's with the San Diego Builders Industry Association. Matt, I heard you say in something that I read, you said if Prop A passes, if you think we have problems now, wait do you see what happens if Prop A passes?
Yes, I did say that because that's exactly what could happen. If Prop A passes, what's going to happen is that investors will flee the unincorporated area because when you have to spend literally years trying to get a project approved, costing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and then ultimately having to take it to a vote of the people, that's not going to happen. The risk is too great, which means housing will not be produced if Measure A passes in the unincorporated area.
And Matt, let's just stop for a second. As we look right now, it's passing by 2%, very close early on. What we're talking about is what's been called SOS. So if Measure A passed, it would require the county-wide vote on every major project that has been granted a general plan amendment that increases housing density in rural and semi-rural lands and unincorporated areas.
Yes, but it increases housing density, but only by 6 additional units. So if someone had a parcel and they wanted to add 6 additional units, they would have to go to 1.3 million voters and get approval. And as you're seeing tonight, project-specific ballot initiatives do not fare well in this area, which means no one's going to take that risk because it's financially untenable.
Are you concerned that this was backed by the Golden Door Spa, who had a lot of money to put into this?
Yes, they've been a very formidable opponent to both Measure B and Measure A for the simple fact that they don't want development near their luxury spa. And the real losers in everything that's happening with B and others are the home buyers, future home buyers, because they're not going to have the opportunity to buy things closer to into San Diego County and continue those long commutes from Riverside into San Diego County. 60,000 commuters come from Riverside into San Diego every day because the high cost of housing has forced them to cross the county line.
How disappointed were you when just recently outgoing Supervisor Diane Jacob came out, the only supervisor to do so, and actually say that she supports this measure because, in her words, it ensures voters and not 5 elected officials will have the final say on county general plan busting projects in the rural areas?
Well, is she essentially saying she doesn't trust her own vote? Because that's essentially what she's saying, is that she wants the voters to make the decision because the Board of Supervisors are incapable of making valid choices, and that is so incorrect. It takes years. It takes hundreds of thousands of dollars in reports. It takes a lot of deliberation, meetings, and consultations to get a project to the point where the supervisors can make a decision. We live in a representative society, so you elect these people to make these complicated decisions. It's unfeasible to leave these sort of complex issues to slick mailers, right? Slick ad campaigns and social media advertising in order to make these decisions. That is not a sound housing policy for this region and only spells disaster if we're going to continue down this path.
So that was going to be my question. What is your greatest concern moving forward now, knowing our housing issues that we have right now?
Investors will flee the unincorporated area because it's too hard and too expensive to do it. I'm a little optimistic because Measure A is so close. That means there was a story to tell and people were listening. This is just the first round of votes. We have a long way to go, and hopefully when all the votes are in, people will have understood our message, which is no is not a plan. We need to have good housing policy in order to build and provide the affordable housing, which we're not getting right now, and Measure A will only exacerbate that problem.
And the people that support it, when a lot of the people in the county will be able to read and they read their election booklet, the first thing it says is prevents urban sprawl. A lot of people say prevents urban sprawl, and they go, oh.
It's not urban sprawl. It is on a major transit corridor. And that's what this is all about. Golden Door wanted to prevent these projects being built along the I-15. The I-15 is one of the major transit corridors in the region. Consider this. It connects the 3 million people who live in San Diego to the 2 million people that live in Riverside. There's 450,000 people living in between and 140,000 homes in the I-15 corridor. It is a major transit corridor. That is one area where housing should and must be built if we're going to address our housing crisis effectively.
One thing we do know, we do have a huge housing crisis right now, and a lot of our first responders are making these tremendous commutes to get to their jobs here, so that's an issue, no doubt. Matt, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. Derek Stahl is in the Live Center right now as a lot of those national numbers are beginning to really congeal because those election boards, they stopped so long ago, so many hours ago. People stopped voting that we're really seeing the numbers. Derek, what does it look like now?
Yeah, I would say two states are really shaping up right now, Texas and Maine. I want to zoom in on Texas with Dr. Kira Green, the Executive Director of the Center on Policy Initiatives. So Biden is in pretty good shape right now in Texas, 30% support compared to 28% support for Sanders. What's going on in Texas right now?
I think one of the things that's going on in Texas is that we're seeing a lot of late voters come in and support Biden in that state.
Yeah, and I have a photo right here of, we've seen insanely long lines in Texas, reports of people waiting hours, 2+ hours. A lot of people in Harris County, which is the county, I believe, where Houston is, if I can click on it. There we go. Look at that, a lot of support for Biden, 10,000 votes on Sanders right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting what we're going to see about where those voters come from. What I think is a good sign for whichever one of these candidates wins that county is just the amazing amount of energy for democracy that's there for people to be standing in line that long.
Yeah, so we've been kind of talking about two big kind of dynamics here in the race. Voters that decided late and the sort of the age gap. This figure right here shows you voters that decided late. What's it telling you about the difference between Biden and Sanders?
I think it's part of what we've been seeing the entire time. We're seeing a huge impact of two things. One, the returns from South Carolina, the decision by other candidates to get out of this race in the last few days, and people making up their mind, largely probably because they were sort of split between those folks and now the decisions are clearer for them.
Yeah, so Klobuchar, O'Rourke, Buttigieg all endorsed Biden in just the last couple of days. They had that big event last night in Texas. That might be in play here. In terms of sort of the exit polling, we can see sort of the demographic breakdown. I think this is Texas. Yes, it is. You can see sort of racial and age divides.
That's right. I think what this indicates to us about this election is that, Biden has really consolidated most black voters. This age range tells us about that. But it does tell us that something different is happening in the future here. You see the same thing happening, a flip of it almost among Latino voters, where younger voters are even more strongly assigned there, and then more of a plurality of voters across ages, across candidates as you get older.
We've heard from the Sanders campaign that he's going to be the candidate that can most energize the party, that he's going to be the candidate who can bring out the most voters come November. We have seen some record turnout already in some states. So what do you make of that argument that voters will only be energized with Sanders at the top of the ticket?
I think there are two different types of energy that we're talking about here. What it seems to indicate is that the energy of hope seems behind Sanders. Young people, people who think you can change the future. The energy of fear seems to be with these older voters who are coming out at the end to say who can beat Donald Trump. That's really what's driving them.
Dr. Kira Green, thank you so much. We'll send it back to Kim and Steve at Golden Hall.
Thank you so much, Derek. It's beginning to get crowded here at Golden Hall, and in fact, we have Mayor Kevin Faulconer with us. We are going to go to a break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk to him, among other things, Measure C. Big on his agenda, whether we can get that convention center expanded, get all those large conventions that the Tourism Authority says we're losing here in San Diego, and the hundreds of millions of dollars that goes with it. So much at stake here tonight. We are continuing to follow the numbers, and we will have more when we come back.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges: housing,
interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job.
Back on the job.
Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Tamron every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter. The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. I have the same exact amount.
Hot Bench. Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
Welcome back to Golden Hall. I'm Kimberly Hunt along with Steve Atkinson. Numbers coming in. Let's go right to the 50th Congressional seat right now. Who will replace Duncan Hunter? We're looking at the top two. They will be the runoff heading into the general election. It will be who will face Ammar Campa-Najjar. And throughout the evening, Darrell Issa has been a few percentage points ahead of Carl DeMaio, and is thought to be a fairly safe Republican seat. So in the general, Darrell Issa would have a very, very easy time if the people for DeMaio coalesce under Issa and come together.
Scott Peters is the incumbent in the 52nd district. It looks like he's going to be moving on to November as well with 48% of the vote right now. It looks like Republican Jim DeBello is going to be the person that will run against him in November. Not much of a surprise in this race so far.
And then there's the 53rd, and that is a lot of players trying to replace Susan Davis, and it will be who will go up against Sarah Jacobs in the general election. An interesting one, because if Georgette Gomez, backed by the Democratic Party rather, if it is her, that would be a very interesting race between the two Democrats. Sarah Jacobs ran some ads that made people believe she actually preferred it to be Chris Stoddard. He's been trailing so far this evening.
Mayor Kevin Faulconer is with us here. We're going to talk with him in just a minute, but in the meantime, we're going to talk about the person out to replace him. Todd Gloria has been polling well all along, and it looks like those polls are true tonight. He is going to be moving on to November. The interesting part about this is who's he going to run against? Will it be Republican Scott Sherman or Democrat Barbara Bree, who is, both of them are city council members right now. They are neck and neck, so a lot's going to be decided here in the next few hours.
And for city attorney, it looks as though Mara Elliott really is doing well tonight. Corey Briggs well behind her. She has 67%. He has 25%.
Very quickly, Prop 13 is the statewide initiative, $15 billion in state bonds to build and repair our schools. It does not look like it is passing at this point. We're going to continue our local coverage on all of your streaming devices. We'll send it back to ABC News national coverage for now. Stay with us.
Proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job. Back on the job. Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Tamron every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. You're watching ABC 10 News, live election coverage. Your voice.
And welcome back to Golden Hall and ABC 10 News coverage of Super Tuesday. I'm Steve Atkinson along with Kimberly Hunt. The polls have been closed for about 2 hours now. Early results are still coming in. One of the most important races that we have here in San Diego is Proposition C, Measure C. It is the hotel tourism tax increase. It needs 2/3 majority to pass. Of course, this would fund the convention center expansion, the homeless programs, and street repairs. And at this point, it is barely hanging in there. It needs about 66%, that 2/3 vote to pass. It's hanging in right now at 63%.
One of the supporters of Measure C is Mayor Kevin Faulconer, and he is joining us on set right now here at Golden Hall. We appreciate you stopping by.
Great to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you feel at 63% early on?
Early returns are good. It's tough to get 2/3, but to be where we are right now this early in the night, I think speaks well. And I think it really shows a mandate that San Diegans so far have said these are important priorities for us to say, our convention center expansion, dollars for homelessness, dollars for road repair. I've been around a lot for a lot of campaigns, and to see the tremendous support that we had across the spectrum, Republicans, Democrats, businesses, labor, I think it bodes well. As I said, it's early. It's tough to get to 66, but the early returns are encouraging.
This had such huge bipartisan support. So many people on both Democratic side and the Republican side came out to support this. So many first responders came out to support this. Homeless programs. What does it say if this doesn't pass about San Diego?
Well, I'm only interested in success tonight, right?
True.
But I think you're right, Steve. Look, because when you look at Father Joe's Village, and Father Joe has come out, Alpha Project, and others, and so many folks that care about San Diego have said this is the right measure at the right time. And it's tough to get 66% of folks to agree on anything, right? Very polarized society these days. But at the same time, I think people have looked at this and have said, yes, these are our priorities. It is a great coalition. We've had all of the service providers that actually provide help to homeless individuals have said, we need to do this. And so that's why I'm encouraged. It's always tough to get the message out, but to be at 63%, I think it bodes well.
Putting aside road repairs and the homeless for now, the driver of this money really would come from the tourism industry.
That's right. That's right, Kelly.
So it's the expansion of the convention center. It's filling up our hotels. It's building more ways that we are a tourist destination.
And that's the strength of ours. I mean, that's a competitive advantage for us as San Diegans. Other cities would love to have the tourism that we have and the conventions that come in. And so our ability to expand that, to keep great conventions like Comic-Con, to attract others, that helps our bottom line. I mean, that's how I pave more roads, keep libraries and rec centers open, hire firefighters and, police officers. And so that is a competitive advantage for us in San Diego. I think folks saw that. The hotel and the lodging industry, the tourism industry was strongly behind this measure. And to have something where visitors are going to pay for some of the most important priorities for San Diegans, as I said, we still got some work to do to get it up to 66%, but I'm hopeful that those numbers will actually grow as some of these returns come in.
Is there another city that you would say if we grew up a little bit in this tourist town that we are, and we knew that we needed to expand this convention center, kind of bring that in, that we could be X?
Well, when you look at some of the greatest places to come at conventions, we're it. I mean, and there's other people that love to steal our conventions, but we've got to keep pace. You know, our competitors in California, Anaheim, Los Angeles, San Francisco have done expansions, so it's the right time for us to do this. And like I said, the early results are encouraging. You know, have Comic-Con come out like they did earlier last couple of weeks that said, you know, this is the right thing to do. Again, it's not about partisanship or anything. It's about let's do the right thing for San Diego, and that's why I was so encouraged that so many people came together to say, we've been talking about this for a long time. Let's finally give San Diegans the opportunity to come out and vote, and to see that 63%. That is a very strong mandate this early on in the process.
How much money would be lost if this doesn't pass?
That's millions. I mean, it's millions a year to our bottom line, and it's, you know, that's part of the message that we tried to get out there. Again, this is a strength of ours. Other cities sometimes will say we hope to attract conventions. We know we can in San Diego. We know that we actually turn away business, and so those are groups that we want. Those are revenues to our city that we want, and when we have that, right, that's how we're able to provide neighborhood services. Our TOT is our third largest source of revenue, behind sales tax and property tax. So when we grow, when we have a strong tourism economy, we're putting San Diegans to work, and we're providing dollars to our neighborhoods. I happen to think it's a no-brainer, which is why I've been out pushing so hardly for it. And as I said, to see that 63% so far, an overwhelming majority of San Diegans have agreed with that as well.
I want to get you to have the chance to have the direct response to the critics of Prop C, the biggest one being Michael McConnell, who put hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money in. And when he sees that 59% of the money goes to the convention center, 31% to homeless, 10% to street repairs, he says, oh, but there's loopholes, that may never happen. What's your response?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of time for so-called homeless advocates that don't actually provide homeless services. Sorry to be so direct, but that's how I feel. I have more time with the folks that are actually helping people to get off the street. Father Joe Carroll, you know, when I look at Deacon Vargas, when I look at Bob McElroy Alpha, the folks at Pat, the folks that are actually saying, we know what's working in San Diego, we need this. That's who I listen to. That's, I think, who San Diegans are listening to. And so you're always going to get somebody who doesn't support something. But the fact of the matter is, when we see in these priorities, to see that strong support, I think San Diego saw through some of that, and it says we want to help people, we want to do the right thing, we want to grow our convention groups, and we want to keep the city moving forward. When we do that, we're a better city for it.
The thing left out of this we haven't talked about is street repairs, which was one of your biggest initiatives coming in.
Well, it is, and when I think back to when I was first elected, and when, you know, back in the pension crisis, when this city wasn't doing virtually any road repair, I said we're going to do 1,000 miles in 5 roads, you know, 1,000 miles in 5 years or less. We got that in 3.5 years. This allows us to continue that momentum. And I don't care what neighborhood you live in, you know what we need to do. Yeah. And so that's why Measure C is going to be such a big help.
Mayor Kevin Faulconer, thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you. Thank you.
Very big measure for this city in San Diego and for the future of San Diego. Vanessa Van Hefty is with Carl DeMaio's camp. She is downtown. Vanessa?
We knew this was going to be a battle, Carl, going into this. Looking at these early returns, how are we feeling?
It's in line with what our initial polling assessment was for these votes, early votes versus election day votes, and of course the provisional votes. This is going to be a nail-biter contest. We were outspent by 1.5 million. Darrell Issa wrote a $3 million check. We heard that he actually put in money at the very end that hasn't been disclosed yet, but will be shortly. $500,000 in PAC money as well that he got from Washington, D.C., the entire establishment behind him. But we have the grassroots momentum. We've got the drive of all those contributors that gave a $5, $10 contribution, and our numbers, we believe, will continue to grow as every ballot, every legal ballot is counted, because people want a fighter in the 50th district. They don't want to sell out, a quitter. They don't want a career politician. They want someone who's going to be principled and fight for the people.
This has been such a contentious race, and the ads really nasty.
Nasty, but more importantly, false. And what's so frustrating about this is that my base know me from the radio. Everyone who heard me on the radio knew my positions in support of President Trump, in support of border security, and they rejected Darrell Issa. I think Darrell Issa, if he does make it in the runoff, which I don't think that'll happen, he's going to have a problem, because a lot of people are going to say, but you lied. You repeatedly lied. And so that's going to be a challenge, and I think that he's going to have to repair that if he gets in the runoff, but I don't think we're going to have that problem. I think I'll be the standard bearer to present the message of freedom and opportunity, which I don't think Californians have heard for a while. That's going to be exciting because they've only heard one side of the story, socialism, one-party rule, the Democrat way. Now, I believe we can be the ones that present a better future for California, and it's going to start with our campaign in the general election in the 50th, because I think the contrast between me and Ammar Campa-Najjar could not be clearer a contrast.
And early returns and remaining optimistic tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, we have about 80,000 votes with our modeling left to be counted, and I think, when we see these Election Day votes and the provisional ballots, we will continue to climb and overtake into second place.
All right. Good luck. Thanks, Carl. Back to you guys.
Still swinging as he goes down tonight. Boy, that has been an ugly race and continues to be so. All right, let's check in with our Adam Mercuzin. He is over at Democratic headquarters to give us more on what's happening there. A number of candidates, Democratic candidates, are showing up there, and it looks like he's with Georgette Gomez right now. Adam.
Yeah, we've got Georgette Gomez. She's in the race for the Congressional District, the 53rd. Georgette, let's talk about tonight. Polling really well right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're feeling really optimistic. We're excited. We ran a strong grassroots campaign from the beginning all the way to the end, and we're feeling really good. We're seeing that our message that was delivered to the voters in the 53rd resonated. They want to see somebody with a proven record, and that is me. I was the only candidate that actually has a proven record, and we're going to continue fighting really hard, and we're really feeling really great, though. We feel that we will make it today. We're going to go into the general.
So not everyone was expecting you to get to the general, but you're saying you knew it all along. That's what you were feeling.
No, we were feeling good. I mean, we knew that if we did our work, which is deliver the message, and we were able to do that we were going to make it out. And today we're seeing that.
So this night tonight, how are you feeling right now looking at this? We've got all the returns coming in. What are you expecting as the night continues to go on? What are you expecting from the polling?
Well, we did a strong GOTV, get out the vote effort today, this whole week. And we know that that's going to improve the results and moving us up. But we know we're going to be on the top two. And we're looking forward to it.
I know you're having a little bit of trouble, but if you can, let's talk your priorities moving forward. Let's say you are the nominee. What are you going to be looking forward as you get into this general election?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward in talking to the voters about issues that are impacting. Sorry.
That's okay. Maybe we should let you get a drink of water, and we appreciate the time with you on that. So, you want to finish?
Yeah, no. So I'm looking forward to talking to the voters in the 53rd to talk about the issues that are impacting people's lives, and that is more housing, better jobs, health care, improving our health care, and making sure, as we are right by the border, that we're improving the image that the border is to San Diego, and I'm going to be a strong voice to that. I'm looking forward to delivering that message that I'm the progressive candidate that has a proven record of getting things done. Started as an organizer, and now I'm a council member. I'm the council president, a former chair of MTS, who has been devoted her entire life in addressing our income inequality issues, addressing environmental justice, addressing our just social issues that are impacting communities that have been neglected by government. And that's why I first ran, and this is why I'm continuing to run, because we deserve better, and we can create a government that is more responsive to the people, which is what I'm hoping to do.
Perfect. Georgette, thank you so much for taking the time with us. I'll let you go get a glass of water and continue to talk tonight.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night. So that was Georgette Gomez for the 53rd Congressional District trying to win that seat. It looks like she's polling pretty well right now. Sarah Jacobs and Georgette Gomez polling 1-2 for the Dems. Another big night. We'll keep an eye on that. I'll send it back to you guys in Golden Hall.
Thank you, Adam. I'm Anthony Pura here inside the Registrar of Voters office, where things have really started to pick up tonight. Take a look. The first ballot started arriving here from the precincts. There's 1,548 precincts in the county. The first ballot started coming in a little before 8:30, and now they've just been arriving in the carloads. You can see people here. They're coming into their stations with boxes, those boxes filled with the ballots that everyone filled up. All those voters that came in today, their ballots are arriving here now, here at the registrar. office, and they're being put into these machines to be counted up. Now, let me talk about these machines for a short while, because these are brand new machines that are being used here for the first time in San Diego County. The ones that you're looking at here that these workers are using can tabulate about 4,000 ballots an hour. They have bigger ones here in the back. Those are going at about 10,000 ballots an hour. Now, that's a much larger rate than they were in the 2018 election, where they were getting counted at a rate of about 500 ballots an hour had to be done manually. So 20 times more efficient here tonight. Now that the ballots are coming in, the workstations have really started flowing. These workers here, they've been ready to go since 8 o'clock when the polls closed, and now they're finally getting a chance to play their part tonight, and we're watching them behind the scenes here as they count up all the ballots that were cast today. Of course, we're going to stay here throughout the night and just kind of see and make sure that everything has will move on pretty slowly. It has moved on pretty slowly throughout the day, and we will bring you more updates as soon as it becomes available. We're reporting live tonight. Anthony Pura, 10 News.
Anthony, you're talking about how efficient they are, and it just brings us to really the raw facts and how impressive this really is. There are over 12,000 variations of ballots, and then there are 3,000 different ballot types in 5 languages.
Different languages?
At over 1,500 polling places with 1.8 million registered voters. I mean, this is just an enormous job, and then you sit there and see inside the ROV how efficiently they are getting these numbers back at us tonight is really staggering.
And the good thing is, with all the technology that we have, they had some hiccups over the weekend. They corrected those immediately. We don't seem to have any issues here tonight. A couple of things at some of these polling places, but they corrected those as well. So things really seem to be moving along very well.
Yeah, it's astounding. Jennifer Kastner is with Ammar Campa-Najjar, and he is eyeing the 50th district. He barely lost to Hunter back in 18 by just 9,000 votes. He's feeling very good, although if he has an opponent of Darrell Issa, especially a seasoned congressman, he may have a tough general. Jennifer.
Well, Kimberly, Ammar Campa-Najjar is on his way down here right now to Golden Hall. We were just with him about an hour and a half ago at one of his offices in El Cajon, where he was holding a watch party and was surrounded by dozens of supporters. We have video for that. Let's play that for you right now. But dozens of supporters showing up to get him through this night, and he is having a very good night. He is the only active Democrat on the ballot for the 50th district, and he's been polling very well. The last poll showed he had 35% of the votes. Campa-Najjar is in a good mood tonight. He is calm, he's feeling confident because he doesn't have much to fear yet. The real fight is going down tonight between the top opponents, Carl DeMaio and Darrell Issa, both Republicans, vying for a seat in the 50th district. Again, Ammar Campa-Najjar is on his way down here right now to Golden Hall. He should be here within the hour. Let's go back to you.
All right, thank you, Jen. Again, that is one of the most important races that's taking place to replace Duncan Hunter. Okay, let's check in with Jen De La Cruz, who is with the Bernie Sanders headquarters in Barrio Logan right now for an update on what's happening there. It's been pretty joyous there tonight, all night, Jen.
Yeah, a lot of people here pretty much in a good mood because the results so far coming in are exactly what they were hoping for. So there are some people who have been inside watching some of the new numbers coming in. They had a little bit of a bonfire going, people just coming together to thank everyone for the hard work that they've done. They've been, going door to door out in the neighborhood. Past couple months, a lot of these people worked together on Sanders' campaign back in 2016, so they've really been in this for a long time. And the past 24 hours just have been very restless for them. They met early this morning. We're going door to door in East County, going door to door in the South Bay, pretty much everywhere all over San Diego County, trying to get some of those last-minute voters, and they were doing so right until the polls closed at 8 o'clock. They had about 100 volunteers who've been working this campaign here throughout the afternoon, and this campaign really was focusing on part of that ballot delivery law. I spoke with some organizers this morning about how that's been working for them. It allows volunteers to pick up mail-in ballots from voters who already filled them out but can't make it to the polls themselves. The staffers then take those ballots to the polls, and we spoke with some of those organizers earlier today. We'll give you a listen to that.
we know that you're busy at this moment, but we've only got 3 hours left, and we want to make sure that your ballot gets in, and we can take care of that for you. And there's all other ways in which that we try to help people understand that they can trust us, and we take it very seriously. Taking someone's vote for them is taking their political voice, and delivering that for them is such an honor that we are very, very careful about making sure that we do what's right by those folks, that we do it correctly, and that it gets turned in the way that it needs to be.
And the results have been speaking for themselves. That ballot delivery method, helping people cast their votes who can't necessarily make it to the polls, has worked so far for everyone in this campaign. They're celebrating tonight, still staying relatively humble. They know it's still early in the game, and they know that their fight is not over just with California tonight. They still have a long road ahead of them, but overall, everyone here pretty happy so far. Reporting live in Barrio Logan, Jennifer De La Cruz, 10 News.
Thank you, Jennifer. And sitting with us this evening has been our political analyst, Stephen Goggin. And we were just talking about Sanders, but prior to that, the 50th. And we've heard from Carl DeMaio tonight, and he was tonight calling Darrell Issa a, quote, liar.
Right.
Earlier, you were about to answer if they could coalesce in the general so that they could, one or the other could beat Campa-Najjar.
Right. They haven't minced words for each other in the campaign or tonight, even after kind of all the ballots are in. And obviously both are vying pretty vigorously to compete against Campa-Najjar in November, and they could coalesce, right? DeMaio has his own radio show, though. So the question is, you know, whether he uses that to try to propel whatever Republican it is, whether it's himself or whether it's himself or Issa, right? We don't know exactly what he'll do after this election, and both candidates tonight did not seem very pleased with the other, and so the question is whether they actually will come together, or their supporters will. Their supporters likely will, but the candidates seem to not be too favorable towards each other.
That's usually a Republican-held seat, so we'll see what happens there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Cole Bear. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher together.
Back on the job. Back on the job. Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Tamron every day. She's in my kitchen with me.
I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot Bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
Welcome Welcome to Golden Hall on this Super Tuesday. I'm Kimberly Hunt along with Steve Atkinson, and we want to go straight to the mayor's race here in San Diego. Todd Gloria has been far out ahead as planned, but he was polling at 29. Now he's showing at 40. It's who will he face in the general, the Republican Scott Sherman, with only 2 percentage points ahead of Barbara Bree, so we'll be watching that race very closely throughout the evening.
All right, speaking of Scott Sherman, let's check in with our John Horn, who has been covering Scott Sherman's camp all night long. Let's go to him now. John, what's it like there?
Scott Sherman basically describing himself as cautiously optimistic. It's early returns. It's going to be a long night. He took the stage here. We have some video of him doing a speech, sounding confident and explaining why he wants to run the 8th largest city in the United States. This is what he had to say about his chances of making the runoff and what could be next for him.
First results are encouraging. You know, the other two candidates campaigned for a year. I campaigned for 3 months. We're in second place. So it's encouraging, but you know how politics works. You can go to bed now and wake up in the morning and the votes are totally different than what you thought they were going to be.
If you remember, Sherman entered the mayor's race just in the last week before that filing deadline. Otherwise, it was shaping up to be a race of 2 Democrats, Barbara Bree and Todd Gloria. And now we're not going to know that answer, at least until the wee hours of the morning or tomorrow morning. But for now, live at the U.S. Grand, John Horn, 10 News.
Thank you, John. We have several controversial measures on the ballot, all basically affecting development. Measure A being one of those, kind of referred to as Save Our San Diego Countryside, requires public votes on county general plan amendments. And right now, it's really close. It has been throughout the evening, but 51 over 49% voting yes. And
the Golden Door Spa was on the yes side of that campaign for Measure A. It is against Measure B, which is also commonly known as the Newland Sierra Amendment as well. Now, Measure B is also having a tough time. It's that project that would allow more schools and housing that would be just north of Escondido. But at this point, it also does not look like it's faring very well. It looks like it's not going to pass, with 58% of respondents, voters in this, voting against that.
And Measure C, huge in this city. It has been talked about, the expansion of the convention center and the money siphoning off of those higher hotel taxes, pushing our 10.5% up to possibly 13.75%. And then that would be siphoned off to also help the homeless and road repairs. Key here, look at that 63%. It needs a 2/3 majority to pass, so it needs 66.
One of the hottest races is that 50th Congressional District to replace Duncan Hunter. Ammar Campa-Najjar looks like, as the Democrat, would be moving on to this race. The question is, who's the Republican that's going to face him in November? Darrell Issa has been ahead just barely of Carl DeMaio for most of the night.
And in the 53rd, we've had Sarah Jacobs doing very well in the polls. She's doing about how she has polled at about 30. And now it's who will she go against right now. Georgette Gomez is ahead of her and may go into the general.
We'll see you back here at 11.
We're proud to call San Diego home, but living here comes with a price.
Incredibly expensive. It takes a toll on my bank account.
10 News is committed to uncovering answers and solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Housing.
Interest rates are the single biggest key to affordability right now.
Cost of living.
Income is very significant for our family.
Making ends meet.
So we're eating better than ever, and we're saving better than ever.
You'll see these original stories every day, so you can take action. Together, we're making it in San Diego, only on ABC 10 News.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Never stop chasing the story. Be committed to being there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
On the scene, wherever the story may be.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall.
Always reaching higher to together.
Back on the job. Back on the job. Help build my country back.
ABC 10 News at 6, dedicated to San Diego's stories that matter. And World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tamron Hall has America talking.
I watch Tamron every day. She's in my kitchen with me. I really like the variety of the stories.
She asks the right questions.
Let's keep it real.
Weekdays at 2 on ABC 10. When you turn to ABC 10 News in the morning, we promise breaking news, overnight updates, San Diego's most accurate forecast, and time-saver traffic. That commitment will never waver, but people in San Diego need more than routine. A positive break, a San Diego connection, original reporting that informs and inspires. Not just what's wrong, but what's right. A little good in your morning. ABC 10 News. News you need and stories that matter.
The lies.
Did you run her down with the car?
The lie detectors.
I don't trust you, and I don't trust you. The same exact amount.
Hot Bench.
Weekdays at 3 and 3:30 p.m. on ABC 10. This is a 10 News Election Update.
Welcome to Golden Hall. More numbers pouring in. Assemblyman Todd Gloria, now a candidate for the mayor of San Diego, knowing that he will go into the general election and face an opponent. That is the question being hammered out, is speaking right now at the Weston Gas Plant.
Dr. Weber,
Here's Todd
as well
Gloria.
as here, Dr. Shirley Weber. Thank you so much, Dr. Weber. Listen, it is hard to believe that just over a little more than a year ago, we kicked off this campaign on a cold, rainy night, a Friday no less. I remember talking with my family and my friends, wondering what we might say and what the year ahead might look like. And what it is I actually remember the most is I was wondering if anyone would even show up on a cold, rainy Friday night. But you showed up. You showed up in the hundreds that evening to help launch this campaign for a new, bold vision for our city. And you know, looking back, I don't know why I ever expected anything less, because every single day since, you all have shown up for this campaign, and I'm here to thank you so very much for your belief in me. Over the last year, this campaign that began that one rainy Friday night has grown into an unprecedented coalition of working families and small businesses, of longtime grassroots activists and brand new young people for the first time getting involved in politics. Where's our Todd Squad at? This is a movement of Democrats and Republicans and independents from every neighborhood and every walk of life and from every corner of this city. And we have come together focused on just one goal: to build a San Diego that works for all of us. And while the night is still young and there are still many votes left to be counted, my friends, there is one thing that is clear. Our campaign is moving on to November, and in November we will win. Now, I want to remind you all, my dear friends, I stand before you tonight, the proud son of a maid and a gardener, the third-generation San Diegan. I proudly grew up in Claremont and graduated from Madison High School. And my parents, the maid and the gardener, instilled in me the values that continue to drive every single decision that I have the opportunity to make. And it is those values, the values of my parents, that are the core of this campaign. My friends, we are here tonight because we are supposed to leave things better than we found them, to fight for those who have been left behind, to dream big and be creative, and to work tirelessly to make San Diego not just a fine city, but a great city, a world-class city, a vibrant, thriving city. For too long, my friends, for too long, San Diego has acted and operated like a small town, rather than leading like the truly big city that we are, the second largest in California, the 8th largest in the nation. For too long, we have allowed politics to stand in the way of getting things done. And for too long, the status quo has prevented us from tackling the problems that need to be solved. I'm here tonight to tell you that that stops now. My friends, it is time for a new San Diego, a San Diego that thrives, a San Diego that innovates, and a city that finally leads. And the coalition that we have built is emblematic of this new San Diego. It's a city where we value progress over politics, where we come together to get big things done, and where we believe in who we are and what we can be. I believe that we can be a city that ends chronic homelessness. Are you with me on that? If other cities can do it, we can do it too. I believe that we can fix our affordable housing crisis. I know that I'm not the only one experiencing, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of many of you, the lack of affordable housing in this community is a catastrophe for our middle class, and I will not rest until there's a roof over every San Diegan's head at a price that they can afford. And I believe that we should have a world-class transportation system. And that means fixing our roads, investing in infrastructure, and revolutionizing our public transportation system. What does it say about us when we have an international airport and a light rail system that are literally next to one another and yet they don't connect? That is a San Diego special if I've ever heard of it. And what it says is that for too long, we have allowed political constraints to prevent logical solutions to those very simple problems. I believe it's time to finally implement aggressively the climate action plan that I helped to write as our interim mayor. I helped to write the plan. I want to be the mayor that helps implement the plan. And lastly, I believe it's time that we have someone leading this city who knows what it's like to struggle, who knows the squeeze that so many of us face just to put food on the table and a roof over our head and to pay the rent each month, and who has felt and understood that and will carry that perspective with him to the mayor's office every single day for work. I believe it's time for a bold, progressive mayor who will fight tirelessly for every single day for working families and the middle class, and that's exactly the kind of mayor that I will be. And that is exactly the kind of mayor that you deserve. And so, Democrats, tonight's results are certainly encouraging, and we must and we will celebrate this great, great moment for our city. But we have to stay clear-eyed about the road ahead. Make no mistake, the next phase of this campaign will not be easy. Some will argue that our agenda is too ambitious, that our goals are too lofty, that our city's resources are too limited to solve the problems that we face, and that those voices, I know, will grow only louder and stronger in the weeks and months ahead. But we're not going to be doing this because it's easy. We're doing this because it needs to be done and because people are counting on us to deliver, and I will be a mayor that takes action and delivers.
All right, you have been listening to Todd Gloria. A little bit earlier, you heard from Scott Sherman, the other mayoral candidate, one of four. Now we have Barbara Bree joining us on set here tonight. Todd Gloria was just talking about not all the votes have been counted. Right now, you need a couple of more votes to be able to get in that November runoff.
Yeah, it's still very early, and it's a nonpartisan race. I'm a Democrat, as is Todd. Todd did get the endorsement of the Democratic Party, which was 49 members of the Central Committee. There's still a lot of votes to be counted, and we're optimistic given where the race is right now.
You have been running on changing the culture at City Hall. You tell a story of when you got into City Council, you saw no transparency, no accountability. Tell us about that. That's big on your agenda.
Yes, and as I go all over the city, Todd Gloria is a masterful politician. He just gave a beautiful speech. I, quite frankly, have not taken Political Speak 101 or 102. I'm a former journalist turned tech entrepreneur turned elected official. and was astounded to get to a city hall where there was a toxic culture of no accountability and no transparency. Starting with, the Chargers leaving San Diego, and I found out the mayor had been meeting behind closed doors for over a year with Soccer City, basically willing to give away this land in Mission Valley to a group of private investors. I called for an independent audit of the water department when customers got higher than normal water bills and weren't taken seriously. Now it has new leadership. And with the land in Mission Valley, I'm proud we're close to finalizing a transaction with San Diego State. And of course, I called out 101 Ash Street. I said, why is this building, with which Mr. Sherman and Mr. Gloria voted to buy before I was on the council, why is it sitting empty, costing taxpayers $18,000 a day? And it's still empty. And I've gone all over the city and talked to residents. They are frustrated with politics as usual. They feel they are not included in decisions. They care a lot about this city. They want to have a city for their children and their grandchildren. I have 3 grandchildren growing up here. I care a lot about them and what it's going to be like for them and their contemporaries. And I think electing someone who's been politics as usual is not going to set this city on a path toward delivering the future our residents deserve.
So all of those things combined, and Todd talked about a city that needs to thrive through innovation. You've been a big part of innovation in this city. So with everything combined that you just talked about, plus the innovation that you put into, how was it that you didn't resonate with people to maybe get into this November runoff?
Listen, the 1% of the vote, very few votes have been cast. We believe I am in a very good shape to make it into the runoff. And the second thing you need to remember is the special interests in this town spent hundreds of thousands of dollars running attack ads against me on television. A few labor unions and a big real estate developer and others. They didn't want me to get out of the primary because they worried that against Todd Gloria, my message would resonate, does resonate. So your viewers should be asking, why are the special interests in this town spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and defeat Barbara Bree?
How would you tackle the big issues, and you've mentioned they're the top priority as well as the other candidates, of homelessness and housing affordability?
So on homelessness, I'm honored that Father Joe Carroll has endorsed me, and my approach starts with identifying the root causes for each person, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, someone lost a job, and just helping each person on their own terms.
Thank you so much, Barbara Bree, candidate for mayor. You're very close. You're right early in the evening, and we will be back with you as those votes come in.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right, let's check in with Jennifer Castor once again. She's been covering Ammar Campa-Najjar all night long and continues to do so. Jen, what do you have for us?
I'm here with Mr. Ammar Campa-Najjar. You just got here about 20 minutes ago. You got all of your supporters behind you.
My family back here. Not just supporters, my family. And I'm so pleased to have my mom here with me and everybody else. So we're fired up. We're really happy with the results. I want to say thank you to all my supporters. I want to say I really appreciate and respect the kind of campaigns, the opponents that didn't make it through, whether it's Carl DeMaio or Brian Jones or Helen Horvath. They ran with a lot of class, a lot of dignity. There was a lot of negativity on one side, and I welcomed them to my campaign. We have to have an inclusive campaign to make sure that we win this race. You know, I really believe, I'm old-fashioned. I think that voters should pick their politician. I don't think a politician should pick their voters and move from district to district until one welcomes them. And I don't think the priority is trying to fight for Trump. He's a big boy. We need to have someone who's going to fight for the district. Our district's been ignored for too long, and I'm going to focus on every single voter, Republican, Independent, Democrat, all of them, and put country over party. That's going to be my focus in the next 8 months.
This has been a good night for you, but the real fight is going to come after this when we come to November.
Right.
Tell us what you have in store.
Well, look, last primary I got 17%. This primary we got 35%. So we're in a better position. We have real momentum, and I almost won last cycle. So I'm doing twice as good as I did last cycle at this point. I think we're going to win. Our formula is to start stronger and then finish stronger. We're starting strong here tonight, and we're going to be inclusive. And the more people learn about me, I think the more people get on board. They know that I don't want to raise taxes on the middle class. I want to cut taxes on the middle class and impose taxes on corporations that ship jobs abroad, lower the cost of health care and housing and prescription drugs, make sure that we reward work, not just wealth. I actually lost money running for Congress. My opponents made hundreds of millions of dollars running for Congress. So instead of having that backroom deal kind of that smoky room congressman. You want to have somebody who's actually going to put the 50th first and fight for them and make the sacrifices they need to put people first and not themselves.
Viewers want to know how you plan to flip a district that has traditionally been red.
You know, I don't look at races between the left and the right. That's the biggest lie told in Washington. It's not the left versus the right. Republicans and Democrats are both corrupt. It's a race between the outsiders like us and the insiders in Washington. And I'm running against the biggest insider in Washington that has to offer in the last 20 years. So I'm going to bring people together and make sure that we take out the insiders by all of us outsiders, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. I don't see this race as a Republican versus Democrat race. I've already gotten more percentage of voters than the Democratic registration in our district. We have a compelling narrative to bring everyone together in a future where everyone can see themselves in, not just Democrats, but everyone.
Sir, thank you so much for your time tonight. Again, Democratic candidate Ammar Campa-Najjar running for a seat in the 50th district. Let's go back to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Of course, voter turnout is very important in these races. Ammar Campa-Najjar will definitely benefit from that. It should be higher as we go into the general as well. Yeah. Anthony Pura is at the Registrar of Voters office right now, where they have just been pumping out these results and in record time, Anthony.
Yeah, that's right. We are inside the registrar's office here, inside the warehouse where they are counting up these votes. You can see that it's really picking up here. You can see people picking up all these boxes, those boxes containing the ballots. They've just been coming into the warehouse here. They started coming in just a little before 9:30 or so, or around 8:30 or so. They started coming in here. And you can see here that they're being put into the machines and being counted up. These are new machines here that they're working with for this election year. Two very different than the ones they used in 2018. These are high-speed calculating ballot machines here. They can go about 4,000 ballots per hour is what they can calculate. They have some here that can even go 10,000 ballots an hour. It gives them about 20 times more efficiency than what they were using in 2018. And efficiency really is the word this election. Very smooth is what the Registrar of Voters described today. There really hasn't been too many hiccups. I know we reported on an issue early on in East County, maybe an issue over the weekend, but for the most part, no real complaints here as people have been able to come in and get out pretty quickly. There were really no lines. They rolled out these new satellite voting centers that really cut down on some of the long lines that we saw last time. And again, they're counting out the votes. I just want to point out a number over there. There's a little monitor that says 1533. It started off with 1548. That's how many precincts that they have here. It has dropped to 1533, so they still have a lot of work to do tonight. We'll bring it back to you guys.
All right, Derek Stahl in the 10 News Live Center with political analyst Dr. Kira Green. We're taking a look at the big board here. So far, Joe Biden has won 8 states tonight. Bernie Sanders has taken 3 states. I want to zoom in on California, the state we're in. That blue indicates a lot of counties breaking for Bernie Sanders. What have you made of the California results so far?
I mean, I think this continues Bernie Sanders' roll through the West. I think it shows that that support we've seen on the ground is really showing up tonight.
Yeah, one of the things I was struck by is Elizabeth Warren down here. She was projected to pick up about 15% statewide. She's at 12%. The discussion now with her is she did not win Massachusetts, her home state. So what's next? And is she even a viable vice presidential pick at this point?
I think we're going to be able to tell more as we see all the final results and the exit polls. But my concern is that she doesn't seem to be helping boost him in any of the areas, Bernie Sanders, assuming that would be who would select her as the vice president. She doesn't seem to be helping in any of the sort of demographic categories, and she didn't win her home state, which has historically been kind of a requirement for being a vice presidential candidate.
Typically, you pick your vice president as somebody who's going to win you a state. She couldn't win her own state. Let's zoom in on Texas. Very close race in Texas. Probably isn't going to be called for a few days potentially, but Joe Biden is in the lead. And if we zoom in on some of the exit polling, this shows that a lot of voters made up their minds in just the last couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation because I think what that indicates to us is that people are really judging who's viable. They've said consistently they want to know who can beat Donald Trump. And I think this seems like these voters have gotten clear about those in the last days, and they think that that's Joe Biden.
Yeah, rather than the issues, it's just about beating Trump.
That's
All right,
right.
We'll send it back to Kim and Steve at Golden Hall.
Thank you so much, Derek. The numbers coming in, we are watching what's happening around the nation, as we just saw with Derek on the presidential races here in San Diego. Golden Hall is filling up. Races are tightening here. Measures are coming in. And so we're going to have all of those results coming up on 10 News at 11 o'clock.
You're going to see us on our local network there. We're going to have a complete wrap-up of everything that's taking place here in San Diego, as well as more of a wrap-up of what's taking place in California. Numbers still coming in for those presidential candidates as well. So join us there on ABC 10 News here in just moments. We'll be there at 11 o'clock. See you then.